Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. Marvel's Master of Magic. Chapter 61. George is too fierce. Someone had fiddled with the ball and it wouldn't let go of Harry, and it didn't chase anyone else during the whole game. That Malfoy from the Slytherin team must have tampered with it, trying to catch the golden snitch in such a despicable way. In order to protect Harry, all the Gryffindor players gathered around Harry, dropped to the ground, and knocked the bludger away again and again, with the twins guessing angrily. Chaser Alicia Spinnet looked at Captain Wood. "Oliver, you can't let Harry deal with that thing alone, shall we suspend the game and request an investigation?" Wood hesitated when he heard this. Harry shouted excitedly. "If we stop now, we'll be disqualified. We can't lose to Slytherin because of a crazy bludger. They are already up by 100 points and we can only win this game if I catch the golden snitch. Come on, Oliver, take them away. I can't catch the snitch with you around. No, if we both apply for an investigation at the same time, you will not be disqualified from the competition." Just then, a familiar voice came from above them. It was George. After seeing what happened in Gryffindor, the Slytherin team started to watch the fun. It wouldn't do them any harm anyway, so George went over to persuade Flint to agree to apply for an investigation together. The reason was simple. He told Flint that with the current trend they were almost certain to win. But if they won the game because the bludger attacked Harry, others would think that they had rigged the game, and that would be a disgusting win. "George, you are such a good man." Wood looked at George with his eyes full of emotion. George was indeed different from ordinary Slytherins. Ms. Huochi noticed the situation here and walked over quickly. Because both parties jointly applied to investigate the bludger, the game was suspended. Snape and McGonagall, as the deans of the two houses, inspected the bludger. The results of the inspection were obvious, and someone had indeed cast a powerful spell on the bludger. However, this kind of magic that controls the bludger is not something that the little wizards in the school can perform, so it can be confirmed that it was not done by anyone from the Slytherin team. This situation is rare in the history of Hogwarts. In order to ensure the continuation of the game, the two deans announced that there was a problem with the bludger itself and temporarily replaced it with a new one. And asked Dumbledore to help monitor the entire stadium to prevent any more accidents. With Dumbledore personally supervising, Dobby, who was hiding in the dark, naturally did not dare to take action again, and the game once again entered a fierce competition. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, after 3 hours of competition, Harry finally came out on top and caught the golden snitch before Malfoy, scoring 150 points for the Gryffindor team and ending the game. However, when he saw the score on the scoreboard, he was stunned. The score between Slytherin and Gryffindor at this time is 400:200. In other words, excluding his 150 points, Gryffindor was a full 350 points behind. Congratulations to Harry Potter for catching the golden snitch and scoring 150 points for Gryffindor. It's a pity that the winner of this game was Slytherin because George from their team scored 30 goals alone. Commentator Lee Jordan announced the result of the game with regret. As a Gryffindor, he certainly hoped that Gryffindor would win. Unfortunately, George from Slytherin was too strong and Gryffindor could not stop the goal at all. After the game, George returned to Hogwarts Castle surrounded by all the Slytherin wizards. The reason Slytherin was able to win this time was entirely because of George. Otherwise, if Harry had caught the golden snitch, they would not have been able to win again. After dealing with everyone, George quietly came to the Black Lake with his magic book. Winning the Quidditch game was only to increase his popularity and reputation, facilitate his actions in school, and pave the way for his life after graduation. But these were just auxiliary measures and could not make him truly powerful. Just like Lockhart and his ilk, they try every possible means to enhance their own fame, but when they are in real danger, they can only wait to be killed. A truly strong person is like Dumbledore, Voldemort, and Grindelwald. That is what he pursues. But his wonderful time studying magic was interrupted soon. A tall, middle-aged wizard with short yellow hair and round eyes found him. "Hello, George." "Hello, Mr. Pay, who are you?" Halfway through his subconscious answer, George realized that he had spoken out of turn again. "My name is Ludo Bagman, current head of the Department of Magical Sports and Games at the Ministry of Magic." The middle-aged wizard replied with a smile. Upon hearing this, George immediately searched his memory about the name, and soon he had the answer. "Isn't this the director of the Sports and Physical Education Department who was addicted to gambling, went bankrupt, owed the goblins a large amount of gold coins, and cheated the Weasley twins?" I wonder what I can do for you, Mr. Director. It's like this, Madam Hooch recommended you to me, and I just watched your game. I want to invite you to become a member of our England Quidditch team. Ludo believed that a young wizard like George would immediately and excitedly agree to his invitation, because no young wizard could refuse such an honor. However, George's answer petrified him. Sorry, I'm not interested in that. Joining the England Quidditch team would naturally be of great benefit to his fame, but it would be too time-consuming. He would probably have to go to the Ministry of Magic for training every weekend and participate in competitions around the world. It would not be worth it. As I said just now, fame is just something you can earn easily, while learning magic is the fundamental thing, so he naturally refused immediately. But you played so well just now. I could see that you stopped the ball in the end to save face for the Gryffindor team. Otherwise, you could have scored more goals. Why did you reject my invitation? Are you worried that your principal will not agree? Don't worry about this, I will personally talk to Dumbledore, he will definitely agree, and will also give you special permission to set aside time for training and competitions. Ludo explained anxiously. George's performance on the court just now has completely conquered him. Judging from his professional level, even among major international teams, George's level is among the best. So he must take down George today. To be honest with you, Mr. Director, I am good at Quidditch because I am talented, but magic is my hobby. So I don't want to waste my limited study time on Quidditch. Especially now that I am only in the first grade, it is the most important enlightenment stage for learning magic. Seeing that Ludo was becoming more and more anxious, George paused and continued. Of course, I am willing to contribute to our country's Quidditch team, just as I contribute to Slytherin. So I can agree to join the England Quidditch team first, but I can't participate in training and games until my 4th year. Chapter 62, A New Magical World. George's idea was simple. Joining the England Quidditch team now would increase his fame, but he didn't want to waste time on training and competitions, so he simply postponed it to the 4th grade. When he was in 4th year, Voldemort came out. The wizarding world was in chaos, so there was no need to waste time on Quidditch training. Just kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If you don't agree, forget it. Seeing Ludo hesitate, George looked down at the magic book again. Seeing this, Ludo dared not hesitate any longer and nodded quickly. Agreed, agreed. I will go talk to your principal about this matter now, and then we will sign the contract today. 4th grade is 4th grade, it's better than no grade at all. This time when he returns, he can immediately publicize this matter and let everyone know that he has signed a talented player for the English team, so that other people in the Ministry of Magic will not be able to say anything to him. The next day, at breakfast time, the owls swarmed into the Great Hall as usual and delivered the little wizards' things to them. But before long, several exclamations resounded throughout the auditorium. George, you've been accepted into the England Quidditch team. Oh, look here, it says, the director of the Department of Sports and Physical Education of the Ministry of Magic stated that he had discovered a rare Quidditch genius from Hogwarts, who had scored 30 goals in a row in the Quidditch match in his first year, and his talent far surpassed that of Victor Krum of the Bulgarian national Quidditch team. George, he's talking about you. Look at the back of the newspaper. There's a photo of George, Ludo, Snape, and Dumbledore. The young wizards who were in the habit of subscribing to the Daily Prophet quickly discovered today's headlines, which made the young wizards in the entire auditorium excited. After a barrage of questions like why, George finally got rid of those little wizards with stars in their eyes and left the auditorium. He could only be thankful that today was Sunday. If it was Monday, there would be more little wizards and he would not be able to get rid of them so quickly. The second attack occurred during the afternoon, as the school revelled in George's acceptance into the England Quidditch team. Colin Creevey, a Muggle-born, was attacked in the same way as Mrs. Norris and was petrified and taken to a bed in the school hospital. Suddenly, rumours were flying everywhere, everyone was suspicious, and many young wizards began to act in groups of 3 or 5, fearing that they would become the next target of attack. George still didn't ask about it, but just went to the school hospital to visit Colin as a friend. With the legendary wizard Dumbledore around, it would be impossible for him to really let the basilisk kill the young wizards. He did not take action only to train the future savior Harry. Anyway, he didn't believe that Dumbledore would not notice a basilisk of that size attacking people in Hogwarts Castle. Because of Colin's attack, Harry and the other 2 were more certain that Malfoy might be the heir. In order to prevent other Muggle-born wizards from getting into danger again, Hermione officially brewed polyjuice potion in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. George did not get involved and continued to concentrate on studying magic as usual. Time continued until the second week of December, when Professor Snape came to the common room to collect the names of students who would stay in school for Christmas. George didn't sign the list. He didn't plan to stay at school this Christmas. He was going back to Diagon Alley to learn how to make wands. During this time, he has been teaching himself wand-making knowledge in the library, but there are many aspects he does not understand, and there are no professors in the school who are knowledgeable in this area. So he planned to go back to Ollivanders, the professional wand-making master, to teach him at Christmas. If you don't learn how to make a wand early, it will be difficult to use magic as the main means of combat in the Marvel world. The speed of gesture casting is still too slow. The battle happens in a flash, so you don't have that much time to cast spells slowly. Only by creating a horizontal wand in the Marvel world can he unleash his full magical power. However, to his surprise, another big event happened that night. In the Marvel universe, George was practicing casting the freezing spell in the mutant combat simulation room when he suddenly became stunned and a familiar pain swept through his body. Am I broken again? After the severe pain, George felt that he had a new perspective, and he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In fact, he had originally guessed that his ability to split his soul might be used more than once. Take a look at the new clone and the new world. Turning his attention to a new perspective, 6 years of memories began to flash through his mind. His clone this time was not a human, but a cat. However, this cat was no ordinary cat. It was a magical cat with magical powers, born with the ability to fly, and able to speak. The cat's name is Jinjin. Because its hair is golden, at first glance it looks like a little lion. 6 years ago, Jinjin hatched out of an egg in a forest. Yes, you heard it right, it hatched out of an egg. Its species is different from normal cats. It is born from eggs instead of live births. Soon after birth, he awakened his racial talent and was able to use the magic of wings to fly, thus successfully surviving in the forest. When he was about 3 years old, he began to think about his origins and wanted to find his parents, so he flew out of the forest for the first time and began his adventure in the outside world. After about 3 years of traveling, it also had a general understanding of its own world. This world is called Escalent, a world full of magic and ruled by humans. Magic has penetrated into thousands of households in this world. Basically, even ordinary civilians who don't learn magic will use some magic items, and there are various magic shops on the streets. The most distinctive ones are the wizards and the wizard guilds spread across various cities. A wizard is someone who studies magic and uses it to fight, and the wizard's guild, in George's opinion, is like a mercenary guild. Accepting missions and earning commissions, except that all mercenaries are wizards. Moreover, there are many wizard guilds in this world, and each guild is equivalent to an independent organization. While traveling, Jinjin accidentally learned that there was a guild called Fairy Tale in the Kingdom of Fiori, which seemed to be one of the most powerful wizard guilds in that country. Among them is a powerful wizard called Fire Dragon, who has a flying and talking cat named Harpy. Jinjin suspected that Happy was of the same race as him, so he wanted to go to Fairy Tale to find Happy and ask if he could know his origins. Unfortunately, when he was heading to Magnolia City where Fairy Tale was located, he encountered wizards from the Dark Guild. Because he didn't want to be captured and treated as a pet, he ended up dying at the hands of those dark wizards. So there was the scene where George's split soul took over his body. Chapter 63 George vs. the Black Mage. This world is great. He was originally upset that his new clone was not a human but a cat, but after learning about the new world through Jinjin's memory, this resentment disappeared. Since magic is so common in this world, it means that the magic system in this world must be very complete and very suitable for him to improve his strength. It's Fairy Tale. Why do I feel like I've heard of it somewhere before? George carefully recalled his memories of his previous life. He always felt that he had heard this name before, but he couldn't remember what it was specifically. It might be some work I haven't seen. The Marvel world that you traveled through was the comic and movie world of your previous life. The second world, Harry Potter, was the world of movies and novels. So this third world must also be a certain work. It's just that he had seen the first two, but not this one. Maybe he had seen the name somewhere by chance, so he had an impression of it. In his previous life, he was born in the 1980s. He watched black and white TV when he was a child. When he was in school, he liked watching kung fu and martial arts movies. After he started working, he preferred Hollywood blockbusters. In addition, I have heavy academic workload at school and am busy at work, so it is normal that I have not seen many works. However, although he regretted that it was not a world he knew and he did not have the advantage of predicting the plot, he was still open-minded. He would fight when the situation was favorable, and he would not give up when the situation was unfavorable. What's more, he has the advantage of sharing talents and abilities, which is already very good. Flavai. George waved a pair of cat claws and chanted a spell, and a few seconds later a leaf in front of him turned into a blade as thin as a cicada's wing. Apparently, this cat body has inherited the wizard's bloodline and its magical power has greatly increased. At the same time, he waved his hand again, and the blade was controlled by magnetism, spinning rapidly in the air, cutting the tree trunk above his head, which was as thick as his arm, into two halves. Magnetism and psychic abilities are also inherited. The original body in the Marvel world and the clone in the Harry Potter world also felt that the magic power in their bodies became fuller. Although the magic power of a cat is not high, it still has a certain bonus. Of course, this bit of magic power is not important. What is important is the cat's innate magic wings. The original body and the clone closed their eyes at the same time and activated the wing magic for the first time. In an instant, a pair of large white wings appeared behind them. If a normal person saw that scene, they would definitely think that an angel had descended to the earth. He flapped his wings and flew up very lightly. If he used to fly by controlling the metal plates on the soles of his shoes with magnetic force and slowly floating with his body, now he has the ability to fly at high speeds in combat. You know, being able to fly at high speed in the air is equivalent to having air superiority, and the improvement in strength is very obvious. Now that I have your body, I will avenge you first. After moving its cat body, the clone in this world spread its wings and flew into the air, beginning to search for the three wizards from the Black Wizard Guild who had killed Jin Jin not long ago. The Black Magician Guild refers to an unrecognized informal wizard guild, which is similar to some killer organizations and terrorist organizations. The Black Magicians in the guild basically take on illegal missions such as murder and robbery. The three Black Magicians who killed Jin Jin were not masters. If Jin Jin's magic power was not limited, he would have fallen down after flying for a short time due to exhaustion of magic power, and he would not have been so easy to kill. George had no worries about this. His wizard bloodline magic power would never be exhausted. He could fly for 24 hours without sleeping. With his magic and superpowers, it is not a problem for him to deal with the opponent, and if he can't, he can just escape. Of course, helping Jin Jin to get revenge is only one of the goals. The most important thing is to get some money. No matter which world you are in, you can't take a single step without money. The little money Jin Jin saved from picking magic herbs in the wild and selling them was robbed by three black magicians. Not only could he get his money back by killing the three black mages, he could also rob all of their money. Found it. Half an hour later, he saw the three black wizards sitting on a grassy spot in the forest, eating grilled fish. He did not act impulsively and went straight up to do it, but instead stopped not far from the three magicians and began to make preparations. According to Jin Jin's memory, among these three wizards, one can use costume magic to summon magic weapons for close combat, and the other can use fire magic for long-range attacks. There is also a last one who is good at wind magic and can use the wind to restrain the opponent. Jin Jin was unable to fly away immediately because he was restrained by the wind. Flavai. Oolong comes out of the hole. He used the transfiguration spell to transform nearby leaves into blades, needles, steel wires and other weapons he often used, and then used the snake summoning spell to conjure up hundreds of poisonous snakes to stand by. He launched a sneak attack only when he saw the three black magicians standing up and preparing to leave. The first target of his sneak attack was a wizard who was good at wind magic. He controlled the imperceptible steel needle and pierced the opponent's brain directly through the ear when he was off guard, twisting it violently and killing him on the spot. The wind magician can block his flight. So he must be eliminated as soon as possible. This way, even if he can't win, he can escape calmly. The death of the wind wizard immediately aroused the vigilance of the other two black wizards. When George controlled the steel needle to continue attacking the other two people, one of the melee magicians directly conjured up a pair of swords and forcefully bounced his steel needle away. Who dares to attack our Death Fang wizards? Magicians are indeed different from ordinary people. At this time, George deliberately flew out of the forest and attracted the attention of the two black magicians. Normally, with his current magnetic power, he could use all his strength to control a steel needle to attack. Even if a normal person was alert, they would not be able to react and dodge it. But the opponent's magician who specialized in close combat was obviously no ordinary person. With the blessing of magic power, his strength, speed, and reaction ability were far beyond that of ordinary people. That's why I was able to use my sword to knock his steel needle away in the first place. If he hadn't been caught off guard at the beginning, the wind magician probably wouldn't have been killed so easily by his steel needles. It's you, the cat, who is not dead. When the melee black magician saw George appear, a look of confusion immediately appeared in his eyes. He clearly remembered that he pierced the golden cat with a sword, so how could it be alive again? George did not reply. While the two black magicians were stunned, he controlled 5 or 6 sharp blades to rotate and attack them. You think you can hurt me with this level of attack? The melee black magician reacted quickly. When he saw the attacking blades, his 2 swords immediately turned into afterimages and accurately knocked each blade away. The speed and power of these blades were not as good as that of the steel needle. Since you are not dead, I will let you die again. The fire black mage who was protected by the melee black mage spread his hands, and a red magic circle took shape immediately. Fire whirlwind. A flame spurted out from the magic circle and turned into a whirlwind that swept towards George. Chapter 64 The value of the traceless stretching spell. Facing the sweeping fire attack, George had anticipated it. He flapped his wings and quickly took off, escaping the range of the fire tornado attack. But this also prevented him from accurately controlling the blade to attack. Fortunately, he had a backup plan. Bite them. Hundreds of poisonous snakes that had been hiding in the bushes and slowly approaching the 2 black magicians suddenly jumped up and shot towards the 2 men after hearing George's order. What? The melee black magician reacted quickly, swinging his 2 swords to cut all the poisonous snakes that were biting him in half, but the fire magician's reaction was not so fast. Although he managed to redirect the fire tornado in time and catch all the poisonous snakes, he was still accidentally bitten by a poisonous snake and his body began to become paralyzed. At this time, George swooped down, closed the distance again, controlled the blade to entangle the melee black magician, and at the same time, the sharp cat claws popped out, tearing the neck of the fire black magician with one claw. Don't forget that his current cat body not only has the original power of a cat, but also the power of the bodies in the other 2 worlds. Although he may not be as good as the melee black magician, he is already beyond ordinary people. With such strength concentrated in the sharp cat claws and a full force dive, it would not be too difficult to tear the fragile neck apart with one blow. You guy, you are looking for death. The melee black magician became furious upon seeing this, and the speed of his 2 swords increased immediately. He actually chopped the blades controlled by George into pieces and turned them back into leaves, while rushing towards George. When George saw this, he did not immediately fly high, but just kept flying forward, making the melee black magician feel that there was hope of killing him, so he followed closely behind. But while flying, George kept waving his cat claws and muttering to himself, obviously preparing for the next spell. There's a trap. The melee black magician who was chasing closely behind suddenly felt a numbness in his calf, as if he had hit something, and quickly rolled forward to avoid it. But even so, there was a deep bloodstain on his calf. It turned out that George had laid out a steel wire here in advance, and he had deliberately flown towards this side just now. Collapse. Just as the melee black magician was about to stand up and continue chasing, George had already flown in front of him, and pointed his cat claws at him. A beam of blue magic light hit the melee black magician between his brows, and he immediately rolled his eyes and fell to the ground. I didn't expect that a few minions from an unknown black magician guild would be so difficult to kill. It seems that the magicians in this world are not weak either. With a sigh inwardly, George controlled the melee black magician's magic sword and beheaded him with one sword. Afterwards, he packed up all the valuables from the 3 dark mages and continued on his way to the Fairy Tale Guild. He decided to go to Fairy Tale, not to learn about his racial background like Jinjin, of course, but to see if there was a chance to join the kingdom's largest guild and learn some magic that could improve his strength. During the battle just now, he suddenly discovered something he had previously overlooked. That is, the wizards in this world can cast magic very quickly and do not need the help of props such as wands, making them very suitable for combat. If he could master more of the magic of this world, then even if the Marvel world couldn't find the right materials to make a wand for the time being, it would be able to use the magic of this world to assist in combat. The next day, a prosperous city in another world appeared in George's eyes. This should be Magnolia City. Jinjin was not too far from Magnolia City, and George could continue to use flying magic, so it took less than a day to reach the city where the Fairy Tale Guild was located. First, find a magic shop and sell these things to get money to buy some food. Carrying a small bag on his back, George spread his wings and flew into the city in front of him. Although his bag was not big, it contained all the belongings of the three black wizards because he cast a traceless extension spell on the bag. The traceless extension spell is an advanced spell that can enlarge the original space and is very difficult to learn. Even though he had started researching shortly after the school started and even consulted several professors, he could only barely expand the space to nearly 2 cubes. It can't be compared with the level of the traceless extension spell like Newt's box, which can extend out a small world. But it is enough to hold all the things of 3 black wizards. After roughly circling the city, he soon found a store with a magic shop sign. Welcome. George raised his cat paw and pushed open the door. As soon as he walked in with a small bag on his back, he was greeted warmly by an old man. However, after the old man greeted the guests subconsciously, he was obviously stunned for a moment, because he only saw the door being pushed open and the magic bell at the door ringing, but he did not see any guests coming in. I'm here. George helplessly spread his wings and flew directly onto the counter. His clone in this world is a magical cat, and it is a very small one, only slightly bigger than the palm of your hand at most. Fortunately, it is habitual to walk upright instead of crawling on all fours. A talking cat, what do you need? As the owner of a magic shop, the old man was naturally a well-informed person, especially having seen the cat from fairy tale, so he immediately returned to normal after a little surprise. I want to sell some things, what do you think they are worth? George shook his small bag downwards, and all the things of the 3 dark wizards were shaken onto the counter. The old man picked up something similar to a magnifying glass, and a small magic circle rose on it. He began to identify the items on the counter one by one. 2 low-level magic swords engraved with the acceleration mark, worth 1500J. A ring that assists in strengthening fire magic, worth 1000J. A headband that can release wind beam magic, worth 1200J. After checking everything, the old man said with a kind face. If you recycle everything, I'll give you 10,000J. 10,000J? I saw that the wind-binding headband in your store is priced at 6,000J. Is that a bit too much? George controlled the tail behind him and pointed at the headband on the counter next to him that was exactly the same as the one on the table, his tone sounding slightly dissatisfied. Even if it is second-hand, it is a magic item and not other items. The price for recycling it is a bit excessive. The old man still smiled and replied. The market is not good right now. So, 12,000, if it doesn't work out, forget it. But in the end he pointed at George's little bag. If you're willing to sell this to me, I can give you 150,000. Those in front were all low-level magic items and were not worth much, but this small bag was obviously a rare space magic item. Even if it was recycled for 150,000, he could still find a buyer to sell it for more than 300,000. If I'm lucky, it might be able to sell for more than 400,000. You know, space magic props have always been very valuable in the market. After all, except for magicians with space characteristics, other magicians, no matter how strong they are, have to carry their luggage when they go out. Many nobles and wealthy businessmen among ordinary people have also been seeking space-related magic props at high prices. Chapter 65 Feng Yang's Glasses. 150,000. George's eyes suddenly lit up. He didn't expect that the 2-square-meter small bag he made using the traceless stretching spell could be sold for 150,000 in a magic shop. 15,000 is considered a considerable sum in this world. Even in this magic shop. The price tags of most magic items rarely exceed 100,000, and not many exceed 50,000. An average person with 150,000 J can live a good life for several years. As long as he wanted, he could easily make hundreds of small bags like these in a day. This also meant that his clone in this world would never be short of money again. But after thinking about it carefully, he gave up this naive idea. Scarcity makes things valuable. If he made too much, it would become worthless and could easily cause unnecessary trouble. As long as there is enough money, it's fine. At this stage, my main focus is to stay alive and study magic. All I can say is that some of the magic in the Harry Potter world is very useful. A traceless stretching spell actually allowed him to indirectly achieve financial freedom in this world. 200,000, I won't sell it for less. George's eyes rolled, and he reached out and took the small bag back in his hand. The old man didn't hesitate at all when he heard this. He quickly took out a box from under the counter, counted out a thick stack of banknotes, and handed it to George. Okay, 200,000 is 200,000. Here is a total of 212,000. Please keep it. He could easily make hundreds of thousands of dollars by selling it for 200,000, which was pure profit, making a fortune. You won't even offer a price. Seeing his boss being so straightforward, George knew that he must have sold the product too cheaply, but he pretended to be depressed on the surface and didn't care in his heart. For him, that small bag could be easily taken out. How about this, sir? I'll give you 20% off on everything you buy in my store today. Afraid that George would go back on his word, the old man quickly added another sentence. That's pretty much it. Xiao Hai took the money, threw the small bag on the counter, and started walking around the store. This magic shop is not big, but it does have a lot of things. He saw many magical knives, swords, and armors, as well as various magic items, basic magic books, magic magazines, and so on. He was not interested in knives, swords, and armor. Not to mention that his cat body was not suitable for them, even if he could transform into a human form, he did not like close combat with a sword. It was too dangerous. He was a magician. He focused on magic magazines, magic books, and magic props. The magic magazine mainly talked about the developments of the major guilds in the Magic Kingdom, which helped him understand the world in more detail, and also the Fairy Tale Guild in more detail. Magic books are all about popularizing basic magical knowledge, the classification of magic, the history of magic, etc. The functions of magic props are varied, including those for life and combat, with rich functions. Feng Yang's glasses, how much are these? After choosing and selecting, he soon found a magic prop that interested him very much. According to the description on the counter, as long as you wear Feng Yang's glasses to read, you can browse at a speed of 5 pages per second, which can help users quickly learn relevant knowledge. He now has to learn the magic system of this world from scratch and needs to read a lot of magic books. If Feng Yang's glasses are real, they can greatly improve his learning efficiency. You have a good eye, sir. This is one of the best magic props in our store. The price is 50,000 J. I'll give you a 20% discount and it only costs 40,000. Seeing that George had picked one of the most expensive magic props in the store, the old man immediately ran over from the counter with a smile on his face. Except for the Fairy Queen, who was taken advantage of, this was a rare big order today. Pack this together with the books and magazines I just picked out. George didn't bargain anymore and just waved his cat paw in response. 10 minutes later, the old man placed a package that was almost half a person's height in front of George. The total price is 80,000, and after 20% off it's 64,000. If you need it, I have a magic card here. Need not. George waved his hand to interrupt the old man's sales pitch, paid the money, cast a levitation spell on the package, spread his wings and tail, hooked the package and left the magic shop. On the streets, the townspeople would always look at George curiously when passing by him, but they would just look at him and would not stop to watch. For people in this world, George's situation is not that uncommon. After finding a fairly good hotel and paying a deposit for 3 days, George temporarily moved in with the things he bought. In fact, with his current cat body, he could just find a place in the woods outside the city to live, but he felt there was no need to put himself in a difficult position. Since he has money, he naturally wants to live a more comfortable life. It would be great if someone prepared food and drink for him. Why should he live in the wild like Jin Jin? His body is a cat, but his soul is still a human. It just so happens that in addition to getting a brief understanding of the magic of this world these days, I can also learn about what kind of guild fairy tale is through magazines and local ordinary people. He wanted to join fairy tale in order to learn more powerful magic, but he couldn't just go there rashly. He had to at least have a general understanding of it. If he finds that he is not suitable in some aspects, he can also look for other magician guilds. There are many wizard guilds in this world, and there are several that are as famous as fairy tale. There is no need to stick to one. Let's try this thing first to see if it really works. Sitting on the bed in the hotel room, he picked up Feng Yang's glasses and put them on. Although the size was totally inappropriate, it was still usable. Picking up a thick book that introduced the types of magic in this world, George input a trace of magic power into Feng Yang's glasses. Suddenly, several small magic circles rose up on the glasses. He felt that when he looked at the magic book through the glasses, the words were directly imprinted in his mind without him having to read them carefully. I quickly turned to the second page and the same thing happened. It seems that as long as you turn the pages fast enough, you don't have to worry about not having enough time to read or digest the content. The magic book that would normally take several days to finish was now finished in less than an hour using Feng Yang's glasses. But after watching it, my brain felt a little dizzy. According to the old man's previous introduction, Feng Yang's glasses should not be used for more than 2 hours a day, otherwise the brain will be particularly tired. But George has psychic abilities, so I think he should be able to hold on for 3 or 4 hours. As for this shortcoming, he felt that its advantages outweighed its disadvantages. Just think about it, a book that used to take several days to read can now be finished in an hour. Even if it can only be used once a day, the efficiency has increased several times. Moreover, during the cooling off period, you can do other things, such as practicing magic, digesting the magic knowledge learned from reading books, etc. Once I have mastered the magic of this world, I will be the first to learn how to make this magic item. Taking off Feng Yang's glasses, George made a secret decision in his heart. If there was such a learning artifact in Hogwarts, he would be able to finish reading all the thousands of magic books in the library before graduation and become the most knowledgeable wizard in the wizarding world. Chapter 66 Fairy Tale Guild. But speaking of which, there are quite a lot of types of magic in this world. He had just finished reading the entire book introducing the magic system of this world, and found that there were significant differences between the magic of this world and the magic system of the Harry Potter world. The Harry Potter world is mainly oriented towards life, and most spells are created to make the lives of wizards more convenient and better, while the magic in this world is mainly for combat. And there are many types of magic. In addition to the normal elemental magic systems that he can understand, there are also some special magics, such as the dressing magic of the melee black magician he killed before. Purchase various magic weapons and place them in a specific space. They can be summoned and replaced immediately during battle. The size of the space depends on your mastery of this magic. Shape magic that makes various elements into various shapes to increase the power of attack. Attachment magic that attaches souls to various objects to fight. Use special star keys to open the gate to the star world and summon various star spirits to help fight star magic. There are hundreds of categories including smoke, warriors, paintings, text, super speed, spells, reception, etc. That's not all, there's also extremely dangerous forbidden magic, lost magic, and super magic that's so powerful it can destroy towns and even entire continents. However, it can be roughly divided into 2 categories, the possession system and the ability system. The holding system is to use magic props and your own magic power to cast magic, such as star magic and card magic. The ability system uses the cultivated magic power to manifest various magics, such as shaping magic, receiving magic, etc. After a short rest, he started reading a magazine that specifically talked about the major wizard guilds. 2 days later, George spread his wings and flew out of the window of the room, passing through the Cardia Cathedral in the city center, crossing a clear stream, and on the high ground in front of the big forest in the northwest corner, he saw the famous fairy tale wizard guild of this kingdom. This is a 3-story building with a plaque on the gate with a pattern of 2 flying fairies, and the guild's unique fairy logo hanging on the roof. After learning from magazines and local people over the past 2 days, I learned that Fairy Tale is a wizard guild with a history of hundreds of years, and it has a very good reputation in the local area. There has never been a case of fairy tale mages bullying ordinary people. Which shows that there should be no problem with the character of the guild. It's just that his behavior is a little bit out of tune. He was able to complete almost any mission regardless of its difficulty, but he was often unable to control the power of magic, causing massive damage to public facilities and receiving public condemnation from the Magic Council. With his current strength, he is definitely not considered a master in this world. Therefore, it would be more conducive for him to study and research magic with peace of mind by finding a wizard guild with a reliable reputation and character in all aspects. The most important thing is that this wizard guild already has a precedent of a magic cat like him joining, so his success rate of joining the guild will be much higher. Standing in front of the guild gate, George stretched out his cat claws and pushed open the door with exquisite patterns. A very spacious hall appeared in front of him. The hall was filled with chairs. Wizards gathered around a table in groups of 3 or 4, drinking wine and talking loudly about their mission experiences. It looked very lively. Because the gate was suddenly opened, these magicians also looked towards the gate. When they saw George, the golden-haired kitten, standing at the door, they couldn't help but blink their eyes. Happy, why did you dye your hair golden? Where's Natsu? Didn't you go to Harjan to find the dragon? One of the male wizards with obvious rabbit teeth stretched out his hand and waved to George. George used flying magic to fly directly to the front desk of the hall and said loudly. I'm not a harpy, my name is George, and I want to join your fairy tale. What procedures do I need to go through? You are indeed a little different from the harpy. You seem to be smarter than the harpy. A female wizard sitting at the front desk, wearing a blue bikini on the upper body and flared pants on the lower body, looked at George in confusion, then picked up the wine barrel next to her that was as thick as 3 people and drank it down in one gulp. George's whiskers couldn't help but tremble when he saw that. He had never seen anyone drink like that before. It was a bit too generous. Kana, harpy will be sad to hear you say that. At this time, a gentle lady wearing a red dress, with a great figure and a sunny smile, stood up from behind the counter, looked at George with a smile and said. You need the president's approval to join the guild. Please wait here. I'll go upstairs and call the president for you. Then I'm sorry to trouble you. George nodded very politely and sat on the round stool at the front desk. This fair-skinned, sweet-looking, white-haired girl is called Myra Jane. She is often seen in wizard magazines and is known as the signature girl of fairy tale. She has served as a model for the wizard magazine Weekly Sorcerer many times. He is extremely popular throughout the kingdom, but his ability is not mentioned in the magazine, so he is probably not that great. Knowing that George was not a harpy and hearing him say that he wanted to join fairy tale, the wizards who were drinking began to laugh and talk about it. At this time, George was not idle either. His eyes swept across the entire hall, identifying those powerful wizards with names and surnames that were mentioned in magazines. The one wandering around without a shirt and only in shorts should be Grey. Who is good at ice-shaping magic? The one who is hugging 2 beautiful wizards and chatting with them about love should be Rocky, a master wizard. The unusually tall man with white hair like Myra Jane is Elfman, also known as Beast Arm, who is good at receiving magic. Natsu, the fire dragon who practices fire magic, and the magical cat harpy of the same race as him are not here. According to what the wizard just said, they seemed to have gone to Harjan to look for the dragon. But what puzzled him was that he read in the magic history book that creatures like dragons had long been extinct in this world, right? There are dragons in this world as well, and according to the description in the book, they are much more powerful than the dragons in Harry Potter's world, because the dragons in this world have higher intelligence than humans and can also use powerful dragon magic. Legend has it that dragons ruled the world in ancient times, but later for some unknown reason the dragons became extinct and humans became the masters of the world. The dragons in the Harry Potter world are powerful, but not intelligent, they are just giant lizards with strong bodies that can breathe fire. Several S-class wizards are not here. After looking around, he didn't see Fairy Tale's most powerful S-class wizard, which made him feel a little regretful. According to the magazine, the most powerful people in this kingdom are the 10 holy wizards, and the Fairy Tale Guild president is one of them. The next are the S-class wizards, and several Fairy Tale Guild members are also on the list. Just as George was feeling regretful, the door of the guild was violently kicked open. We're back. A boy with short cherry-colored hair, droopy eyes and a scarf, a blue cat carrying a small bag, and a girl with long golden hair and a particularly outstanding figure appeared in front of the guild gate. Chapter 67 Giant Magic. Welcome back. Seeing the boy at the door, the fairy tale wizards all raised their glasses. It was obvious that the boy was no small figure in the guild. The rabbit-tooth wizard who had mistaken George for a harpy laughed out loud. Natsu, I heard that you have done something big again in Harjan. However, before he could finish his words, he was hit hard in the face by a big foot, and then he was thrown out, crashing into several tables and knocking away several wizards at the tables. The information about the fire dragon you gave me before was actually fake. The young man yelled with anger on his face. What a fast speed! Shouldn't this guy be a fire magician? How come his body is so strong? George, who was standing on the round stool at the front desk at this time, had a look of doubt in his eyes. Since the boy's name is Natsu and he has a magical cat like him, he should be the fire dragon, the most powerful fire wizard of fairy tale introduced in the magic magazine, who is good at fire magic. But just now, when the young man rushed from the door to the rabbit fang wizard, he even left a faint afterimage, and the force of that kick was extremely strong. These performances are much stronger than the melee black magician he killed before. As expected of a famous wizard from fairy tale, he is indeed different from ordinary wizards. George was not frightened by this, but secretly delighted. Natsu, a fire dragon, has such strength. I think the S-class above that must be even stronger. And the holy mage is the strongest among the strong. He is not afraid that the magicians in this world are too powerful, but he is afraid that the magicians in this world are too weak. Because the higher the upper limit of the wizard in this world, the higher the upper limit he can reach. If the most powerful wizard in this world is not as powerful as him, then it would be difficult for him to become much more powerful even if he learns the magic of this world. How would I know that the information was false? I was just telling you what I heard out of kindness. Natsu, you want to fight, right? I'll accompany you. The Rabbit Fang wizard pulled his head out of the wooden floor and attacked Natsu in a rage. The fight between the two affected other wizards, who joined the battle with roars, and it turned into a passionate melee among the guild wizards. But George could see that these guys were not serious because they were all relying on physical combat in close combat. But even so, he was a little surprised. Not to mention the famous wizards like Natsu, Gray, and Loki, even those unnamed wizards have strong physical strength when they are not using magic. If a normal person was knocked flying and embedded in the wall, or his head was stuck in the floor, he would probably be seriously injured if not killed. However, these wizards just stood up and continued to join the battle, cursing as if nothing had happened. As the fight went on, these wizards started to get excited. The blonde girl who came with the boy was trying to stop the fight in a hurry, until Gray was ambushed by Natsu and his pants were taken off, and he went to her naked to borrow his underwear. She finally couldn't help but burst out and joined the fight. No wonder it's called the most troublemaking wizard guild. George looked at the guild hall which was in a mess and about to turn into ruins, and the fairy tale mages who were gradually lighting up magic circles around them, as if they wanted to compete in magic power in the hall. I couldn't help but think of the extremely consistent comments about the fairy tale guild in those magazines. Stop it, you bastards, are you trying to tear down the guild? At this moment, George suddenly heard a roar from the second floor, and then he saw a thin old man less than 1 meter tall jumping down from the corridor on the second floor. As it fell, its body expanded rapidly and soon turned into a giant that was 7 or 8 meters tall. Seeing the giant appear, the other wizards stopped fighting and fled to the corners in fear. Only Natsu was there, holding his waist and laughing loudly. Ha ha ha, look how scared you are. I win this competition. But his laughter was soon interrupted, because he was stepped on by the giant and almost fainted. George looked at the old man with a white beard and exploding muscles, whose head was almost touching the ceiling of the hall, and his cat-like face was full of shock. Is this the fairy tale's president, Makarov, one of the 10 holy mages, and his giant magic? While collecting intelligence these 2 days, he certainly did not forget Makarov, the strongest wizard of fairy tale and one of the strongest wizards in the kingdom. According to his understanding, Makarov knows many kinds of magic, but the 2 most famous ones are called giant magic and light magic. Giant magic is magic that can make part of one's body gigantic, or the entire body gigantic. And this enlargement is not just superficial, but the strength and defense of the body will all be magnified. According to his understanding, it is the magic version of law of heaven and earth, and it is said that there is no upper limit. The stronger the magic power and the more thorough the research on this magic, the bigger it can become. It is said that in ancient times there were wizards who used giant magic and actually moved a mountain 1,000 meters high. Of course, this is just a legend in the book, and it is difficult to tell whether it is true or not. But at least one thing is certain, the giant's magic is indeed very powerful, otherwise Makarov would not be one of the 10 holy mages, and these mages of fairy tale would not be able to hide so quickly. He had thought about it carefully when choosing magic these 2 days. There are too many types of magic in this world, and it takes a lot of effort to achieve something with each type of magic. If he wants to improve his strength quickly in the early stages, he can only learn 1, or at most 2. So which kind of magic should I choose? He only had a partial understanding of the magic in this world through magic books, and had no idea which kind of magic was more powerful and had a better future. So he thought of the simplest way, which was to learn the magic used by the most powerful wizard first. This might not be the best way, but it was the least likely to make mistakes. The 10 most powerful holy mages in the world, and the fairy tale president he is about to join is one of them. The result is obvious. Naturally, he should learn the same magic as the fairy tale president, so that he can ask for help when he has questions in the future. In fact, he also has a liking for giant magic itself. It's not that he likes close combat with others. As an elegant wizard, he will never engage in close combat if he can avoid it. He was afraid of death, and close combat was far less safe than casting magic from a distance. But he knew that the biggest weakness of a magician was his physical body. Even though a wizard's body could withstand more damage than an ordinary person, he would still die instantly if his vital parts were attacked. But if you learn giant magic, you can greatly alleviate this weakness. When your enemy rushes to you with your magic after going through so much trouble, thinking he can teach you a lesson with his fists, you suddenly turn into a giant and tell him what true despair is. The most important thing is that if you ever encounter a situation where the opponent is immune to magic or magic is banned, the giant can use his own magic to deal enough damage through physical output to break the situation. Chapter 68, Repair Spell Demonstration. As for light magic, George thought he could learn some of it as well. Light magic has a certain restraint on dark magic, and it is easy to gain favor in modern society. Normal people in modern society are very concerned about appearance. A person who casts bloody or black, disgusting-looking horror magic, even if he is doing good things, everyone will instinctively think that he is a bad person. But if you have a pair of angel wings behind you, and if you wave your hand there will be warm holy light, even if you kill someone, people will think you are killing a bad person. Even if it wasn't for the power of light magic, but just for its gorgeous effects. He felt it was worth wasting time learning light magic. Besides, light magic is not weak, otherwise it would not be one of Makarov's main magics. However, it does not look as shocking as the giant magic, and it is more difficult to learn and takes a long time to take effect. It is said that if you do not practice to a certain level, there will be no damage, and it mainly depends on the later stage. On the other hand, he felt that many magic spells could be replaced by Harry Potter's magic, and the effects were not much different, so it would be better to learn them later when he had time. Seeing that everyone was shocked, President Makarov returned to his normal size, jumped onto the table at the front desk, picked up a thick stack of papers, and said seriously, "You guys have caused me trouble again. Look at the information sent by the council. They are all complaints. I am scolded by the council members every day." Hearing Makarov's words, everyone looked ashamed. What they didn't expect was that a ball of fire suddenly appeared in Makarov's hand, burning all the complaint information to ashes. But let all those members of the council eat shit. Then, amid the cheers of the fairy tale mages, Makarov gave an inspiring speech. George summed it up in a few words. "It's all right. Just do what needs to be done. Don't worry about the council. As the president, he will take care of everything for them. They just need to work hard to complete the mission and improve their magic." George was still very satisfied with Makarov's performance as the president. His experience as a slave in his previous life told him that he was not afraid of incompetent leaders, but was afraid of leaders who could not take responsibility. This president was not only capable, but also able to protect his shortcomings and take responsibility. He was definitely a good leader. Only by following such a leader in the early stages can you improve your strength with peace of mind. After the passion, everyone sat on the ground and continued drinking, while George and the blonde girl were brought to Makarov by Myra Jane. "Your name is Lucy, right? Since it was Natsu who recommended you, there is no problem. Congratulations on becoming our fairy tale wizard." Makarov signaled to Myra Jane, who picked up a special magic seal and stamped a seal with the fairy tale logo on the back of the hand of the girl named Lucy. Seeing this, Lucy immediately jumped up in excitement. "I finally have the fairy tale emblem and I'm a fairy tale wizard. You have to know that fairy tale is one of the most powerful wizard guilds in the kingdom, and not every wizard can join it, otherwise those small wizard guilds would have been empty long ago. In addition to strength, fairy tale has very high requirements for the character of wizards who join the guild, and any wizard with a bad record will not be accepted. As for you, your name is George, right?" After accepting Lucy, Makarov turned around and looked at George kindly. "I have 2 questions for you. First, why join fairy tale? Second, besides flying magic, what other magic are you good at?" As a responsible guild leader, he has a lot to consider, so when he encounters a wizard who wants to join, he naturally can't be too careless. Fairy tale has been established for nearly 100 years, has done countless missions, and has offended many black wizards and black wizard guilds. It would be bad if the Black Mage Guild sent people to sneak in and cause trouble. So in fact, it doesn't matter how strong the wizards who join are, they can be trained slowly. The original intention of establishing fairy tale is to create a place where companions can truly trust and help each other. The most important things are identity and background, which are the focus of his interrogation. I joined the Fairy Tale Guild for 2 reasons. George raised his 2 cat paws, then pointed to the harpy standing on Natsu's shoulder, who was looking at him curiously, and said. First, I was born in a forest. I don't know who my parents are, and I've never seen one of my kind. I heard that there was a cat similar to me in Fairy Tale, so I wanted to come and take a look. Love, Happy doesn't know who his parents are. Natsu picked up Happy and raised him. Upon hearing this, Habib immediately raised his right paw and replied. It was also the first time it saw one of its own kind, so it was a little curious. Unlike Jinjin, who grew up wild in the forest, eager to find his own race and family, Happy was picked up by Natsu at birth and then grew up in the warm big family of Fairy Tale, living a very happy life. Therefore, I never thought about looking for my own kind and family. Well, it looks like the first goal can no longer be accomplished. George's expression didn't change much, and he continued. The second reason is that I want to learn more magic, and Fairy Tale is the best wizard guild in the kingdom, so I came. Faced with a holy wizard like Makarov whose background he was not aware of, George did not choose to lie, but told his purpose honestly. The first one is Jinjin's original goal, and the second one is his own goal. It's not like he wants to fight Fairy Tale, he just wants to learn more magic, so that's not really a deduction. Ha ha ha, you're right, our Fairy Tale is the best wizard guild in the kingdom. Hearing George's words, Makarov burst into laughter, picked up the large wine glass on the table, and drank all the wine in the glass. With his 88 years of experience and the ability of light magic to perceive hostility, he was almost certain that there was nothing wrong with the little guy in front of him. So now in his heart, he has already accepted George. It doesn't matter even if George only knows wing magic like Harpy. Joining the guild means being companions, and companions will naturally help each other. There will be many companions willing to take George on missions to earn rewards. For example, Natsu and Happy are the best pair. Next, let me talk about my magic. I have learned a lot of magic over the years, but most of it is not very powerful. However, I think there is one that is pretty good. George spread his wings and flew to a smashed table in the hall, waving his cat claws and chanting a spell. Restored to the original condition. In an instant, the smashed table returned to its original state as if time had gone back. He circled the entire hall and released dozens of repair spells in succession. The guild hall, which was originally broken and needed to be rebuilt by craftsmen at a high cost, had now become what it was when George first arrived. Chapter 69, Fairies Hope George. I'm sorry, I don't have a very good grasp of this magic, so the repair process is slow. But if you give me some time, I can repair the entire hall in one go. George landed on the stool again and folded his magic wings. In terms of combat strength, he felt that whether it was the offensive magic he currently possessed or his own superpowers, they might not be as good as most of the wizards here. So he had to find another way and start from other aspects. Fairy Tale wizards are all well-known destroyers. As reported in a previous magazine, Grey single-handedly wiped out all members of the famous Devon thieves, but he also destroyed 7 houses. This kind of situation happens quite often in Fairy Tale, so his magic of repairing things should be a type that is more in demand, and there is a high probability that he can use this to pass the test of joining the club. Although his current strength was not enough to repair a house in one go, he could take his time if necessary, as his magic power would not be exhausted anyway. When you become proficient in using this spell in the future, not only a house, but even a street can be restored to its original state in an instant. The most important thing is to avoid fighting. His goal is to learn and study magic, not to fight and kill. Clap. President Makarov dropped the wine glass in his hand to the ground. His eyes were as big as copper bells, and the look in his eyes as sharp as lightning seemed to shoot out when he looked at George. I saw his figure flash, and he instantly appeared in front of George, then he grabbed George in his hand and stuffed him directly into Marajana's arms, shouting excitedly. Milijan, give George the coat of arms, quickly. It seemed as if he was afraid that George would fly away from the guild in the next second. George's guess was correct, but he still underestimated how much Makarov valued repair magic. It was not just that it was needed, it was really needed. Don't be fooled by the fact that Makarov just stood there with an impassioned look, telling the wizards not to worry about the high-ranking officials of the council and just go ahead and do it. But in fact, my heart is bleeding. Not to mention having to swallow their pride and apologize to the review committee members in the council, the fines alone have caused the guild's finances to be in deficit every month. Natsu and Grey are highlighted here. The guild's financial income mainly comes from the commission from the wizard's missions, but many times the bonuses from these guys' missions are not as much as the compensation he pays. If it weren't for a few reliable S-class wizards supporting it, the guild would have gone bankrupt long ago. The appearance of George gave him a glimmer of hope. He didn't need George to take on dangerous combat missions like other normal wizards. He just needed to be a firefighter and help clean up after other wizards finished their missions. Of course, perhaps George's current magical ability is not enough to serve as the firefighter of the entire fairy tale guild. But it doesn't matter. Just because you can't do it now doesn't mean you can't do it in the future. Just cultivate it well. George, he is the hope of future fairies. At that time, he would no longer have to go to the council to see the faces of those reviewers, nor would he have to rack his brains to pay the fines. So you say, how could his reaction not be exciting at this moment? George was also very surprised. He had no idea what was happening and found himself stuffed into a soft abyss. Then a coat of arms was printed on his back and he turned into a cat with a tattoo. He knew that he would most likely pass the test after performing the repair spell, but he didn't expect Makarov's reaction to be so big, and he didn't expect his speed to be so fast. To be honest, he felt that if Makarov wanted to kill him just now, he might have been killed before he could even react. As a cat, its body has high motion capture and reaction capabilities. With the combined physical fitness of the original body and the other clone, it is even higher. But it was still far from being comparable to President Makarov. This also made George draw a conclusion, that is, in the future when fighting with wizards in this world, he should try to keep a distance and not engage in close combat. He discovered that all the wizards in this world were like Gandalf and loved close combat. Very good, now let's congratulate George and Lucy, our two new partners, for joining us. Cheers! Seeing the emblem printed on George's back, Makarov stood at the front desk and raised his glass with laughter. The wizards below also reacted at this time and raised their glasses. But as soon as they finished drinking, they rushed to George. George, are you interested in joining our team? Our team? Their team is not good enough, join our team, our team. George should join our team. It turned out that after seeing George's repair magic, everyone had the same idea and wanted to recruit him into their team so that they would have no worries when doing missions in the future. Even Gray, who always liked to act alone, and Natsu, who already had a Happy, rushed to George together. Happy also used his status as a fellow tribesman to build a relationship with George, and kept telling George the benefits of teaming up with Natsu. This scene also made George a little confused. He really didn't expect that just by demonstrating a repair spell that he didn't use very well, it would have such a sensational effect. Just when George was thinking about how to reject everyone reasonably and without losing face, Natsu and Gray had already started fighting. Then, other wizards joined the battle, and the scene returned to its previous chaotic state. However, this time the purpose of everyone's fight has become to compete for George. Whoever is still standing at the end will have the right to invite George to join a team. You, stop, fighting. George stretched out his cat paw, wanting to speak to dissuade him, but put it down helplessly. He thought that it would be very troublesome to rebuild the hall that he had worked so hard to repair if it was damaged. But he also knew that this group of reckless wizards probably wouldn't listen to him. To be honest, he felt that if these wizards from Fairy Tale were in Hogwarts, they would all be assigned to Gryffindor, and no one would be able to escape. Turning his head to look at Makarov, Makarov saw that George frowned, and immediately put down his wine glass, transformed into a giant, and knocked all the wizards to the ground in no time. It's up to George to decide which team he wants to join. If you guys make him unhappy, I will break all your legs. George is the hope of the future fairies. We can't let these guys scare George. If George is scared away, he will have no place to cry. And Gray and Natsu, you two too, be careful when Urza comes back, I'll let her give you a good beating. Hearing the president's devil-like roar, the wizards nodded their heads like chickens pecking at rice. The president was still very scary when he was angry, especially when he mentioned the even more terrifying fairy queen Urza. If Urza knew that they had made the president angry, they would be dead when they returned. You know, Natsu and Gray, who are currently the strongest among them, have both challenged Urza to a duel. After just a few moves, the two men were beaten half to death. If you make the president angry, he will at most turn into a giant to scare you. But if you make Urza angry, she will really beat you until you are left with only one breath. Chapter 70 Fairy Tale Library. Looking at the mess in the guild hall, George had no choice but to fly up again, and used the repair spell to restore the hall, and then politely said to everyone. "Thank you for your warm invitation, but my magic ability is low now, and I don't want to join a team to do quests. I hope to stay in the guild and study magic to improve myself. When there is a chance in the future, I will definitely team up with everyone to complete the task together." It is impossible for him to go out of the guild to carry out missions. Even if he wants to help other wizards to clean up the mess, he will have to wait for a few years until he becomes strong enough. At this stage, the most he can do is help restore the living room, which is often damaged. After all this trouble, he has clearly understood his importance to this guild, so naturally he has new ideas about some things. Originally, he thought that in order to stay in the guild, he should go out more often to help the guild's wizards clean up the aftermath, and use more repair spells if the damage was too serious. It is tiring, but as long as you can stay in this guild, you will have the opportunity to learn the world's top magic. But now it seems that this is really not necessary. Given how much the president values him, he could just stay in the guild for a year or two, work hard to improve himself, and then go and help when he has mastered the apparition and made great progress in the repair spell. This can save a lot of time wasted on the road. Sure enough, when he expressed his thoughts and looked at Makarov, Makarov nodded without hesitation. "Since George doesn't want to form a team for the time being, you guys should just disperse. Go to the taskbar and look for tasks you can do. Get out there and do the tasks." For Makarov, he didn't expect George to play a big role right now. What he valued was George's future. After all, George had a hard time repairing the hall, so the major damages that Gray and Natsu often caused would probably take at least 10 days or half a month to repair. Instead of doing this, it is better to improve your strength first. Once your magic power is improved, you can play a better role and be more efficient. Knowing that the fight was hopeless, the wizards stopped harassing George and started to get down to business, which was to go to the task bulletin board in the hall to accept tasks that suited them. Wizards take on missions not only to make money, but also to gain knowledge and improve their magical abilities through combat during missions. Few wizards in this world like to calm down and improve their strength through theory and research. Most of them like adventure and like to push themselves in battle, develop their potential in desperate situations, and greatly improve their strength. So the mortality rate is also high. George doesn't like taking risks. He prefers to steadily improve his strength in a safe environment. "Lebby, come here for a moment. You guys are going to the library to read, right? Take George with you and take good care of our new member." Makarov sat back at the bar and saw 3 wizards walking towards the entrance to the basement in the hall. He immediately shouted to the leading female wizard with short blue hair and a lowly figure. Upon hearing that, the female magician with short blue hair quickly trotted over. "Okay, President. I promise to complete the task. Libby is the most knowledgeable wizard in our guild. She has read most of the magic books in the library. If you want to learn any magic, you can ask her." Makarov looked at George with a kind face. George nodded and extended his cat paw to Lebby. "Hello, I'm George. Thank you for your help. It's not a big deal. It's only natural for companions to help each other. And you're too kind, guild master. You are the most knowledgeable wizard in our guild." Libby bent down and held George's paw with 2 fingers, with stars in her eyes. She didn't need George's repair magic, but she felt that the serious kitten looked really cute. "Ha ha ha, George, if you have any questions about magic in the future, you can ask me." Hearing Libby praising him, Makarov immediately raised his head and laughed. The older he gets, the younger he looks. The 88-year-old Makarov sometimes acts like a child and likes to be admired and praised. "I will definitely ask the president for help." George's eyes lit up when he heard this, and Makarov suddenly got a drop of cold sweat on his forehead for some reason. So, George and Rebby walked and talked towards the library in the basement. This female magician named Libby was indeed very knowledgeable. She could talk about all kinds of magical knowledge casually, which made George very interested. If he encountered something he didn't understand, he would immediately ask for advice. It was rare for Levi to meet a wizard who was so interested in magic, and she got to indulge in the feeling of being a teacher. The man and the cat had similar interests, and they soon became close as one taught and the other learned. Arriving at the library in the basement, knowing that George was interested in giant magic and light magic, Rebecca kindly took him to find the magic books that were necessary to learn these 2 types of magic. After most of the day's contact, George also got to know Libby and his 2 followers. Except for a few extremely powerful wizards, most of the guild's wizards work in teams to carry out missions. Levi and his 2 followers are actually a team called the Lane Engine Team. The 2 followers are named Sarasuk and Dolar, who are her fans, teammates, and suitors. Sarasuk's magic is called Divine Feet, which can greatly increase his running speed. He claims to be the fastest wizard in Fairy Tail. His attack method is to run at high speed and kick the enemy away. Dolar's magic is called Plants, which can throw out seeds of various abilities, and then attack the enemy after the seeds grow. As the captain, Levi's magic is a very special 3D text magic. 3-dimensional text magic is a magic that turns text into 3-dimensional characters and then throws them at the opponent. And it has corresponding abilities. Libby gave George a small demonstration. She stretched out her hand and wrote the word silence in the air. The sound in the entire library disappeared immediately. Everyone could only open their mouths to speak, but no sound came out. The power of 3-dimensional text magic depends on the amount of magic knowledge you have read. The more magic knowledge you know, the more functional texts you can write. So in addition to completing missions, Libby also spent most of her time in the library studying to increase her knowledge reserves. George was very interested in the magic of the 3 people, but his time was limited, so he decided to prioritize learning giant magic and light magic. After seeing the guild leader Makarov transform into a giant and easily defeat all the wizards, he became more determined to prioritize learning giant magic. And just now, Libby told him that that was not the president's strongest state. The president had not even used 1/10 of his strength. If the president uses the giant magic to the limit, even if he stands there and lets the guild wizards release attack magic together, they will not be able to break the defense. Giant magic not only increases strength, but also greatly increases defense, as well as physical and magical resistance. Its limit is said to be no worse than that of the legendary dragon. What is the concept of a giant dragon? Even the retarded dragons in the Harry Potter world can block the killing curse, let alone the giant dragons in this world. In other words, if he practices well, no matter whether it is the missiles of modern technology or the killing curse of black magic, unless they reach a certain level, they probably won't be able to break his defense. Chapter 71 Guild's Treasure. Barty Crouch Jr., disguised as Mad Eye, said in class that the killing curse used by a young wizard can only cause an adult wizard to bleed from the nose. He also learned from Hagrid that most large magical animals have strong resistance to magic. So the killing curse is not a curse that will definitely kill you, it is just a relative curse. If the enemy of the killing curse has greater vitality than an ordinary person and high enough magic resistance, he can actually withstand the killing curse. Just like the fire dragon, I have never heard of any fire dragon being killed by a dark wizard's killing curse. The method of subduing a fire dragon is usually to use an eye disease spell to make it temporarily blind, and then 100 adult wizards need to use sleeping spells at the same time to subdue it. If he transformed into a giant in the Harry Potter world, he would not be afraid of ordinary dark wizards casting the killing curse on him. If he really encountered a situation where there were too many dark wizards, he would not be stupid enough to just stand there and let them beat him. Time soon came to evening. Before leaving the library, George discovered that there was another door deep in the library, but it was locked. Libby, what's in there? He wondered if there might be some particularly powerful magic hidden behind the locked door, like the restricted section deep in the Hogwarts library. Just now, when Levy was introducing light magic to him, she mentioned that the first president of Fairy Tail once created the 3 most powerful light magics, which were said to be extremely powerful. Of course. Libby also said that it was just a rumor because she had never seen the president use it. So he had reason to guess that the 3 great magic books were hidden in the gate. Libby looked at the door George was pointing at and shook her head. I don't know either, but I heard from Sister Myra that only the president can enter there, and there is a very complex and powerful spell seal on the door. One time, Natsu was curious and wanted to sneak in, but he was directly bounced away by the seal and was unconscious for 2 days before waking up. When I become stronger in the future, I must find a chance to sneak in and take a look. When George heard this, he felt that his guess was most likely true. Returning to the lobby on the first floor, there were basically no wizards in the hall except for Kana, who was drinking, and Myra Jane, who was cleaning while humming a little tune. Those who need to do their tasks do their tasks, and those who need to go back to the dormitory go back to the dormitory. The Fairy Tail Guild has special male and female dormitories in the town for the guild's wizards to live in. Just pay some rent every month. If you want to live in a better house, you can also spend your own money to rent a small villa in the town. You guys are here. I left some food for you. Come and have a taste. Seeing George, his two companions and his cat appear, Myra Jane put down what she was cleaning, brought out 4 dinners from the bar and placed them on the table. In addition to being the guild's signature girl, Myra Jane is also the guild's logistics manager. She is basically in charge of the drinks and food at the bar, the guild's finances, and miscellaneous matters. Sister Myra, you are so kind. The petite Levi threw herself into Marajana's arms and rubbed against her, then began to eat with big mouthfuls. She was often hungry because of reading too late, and Myra Jane would always save dinner for her. Thank you, Sister Myra. Sarasuk, Dorel, and George thanked Myra Jane at the same time. When George was about to sit down to eat, he looked at the half-cleaned room, thought for a moment, waved his hands, and began to chant a spell. Clean up. Suddenly, all the dirt on the table and the ground gathered together and fell into the trash can automatically. The scattered wine glasses and tableware also flew to the bar and were neatly placed. In a blink of an eye, the entire hall became clean and tidy. What kind of magic is this? Seeing George clean the entire hall with just a few moves, Myra Jane and the others widened their eyes in surprise. In the magic they knew, there was no such type of magic. This is desk-alling magic, a kind of household magic. I learned it accidentally during my travels over the years. It cannot be used for combat and can only be used for cleaning. George made up an excuse to get away with it, hooked the spoon with his tail and started enjoying his dinner. Since I don't plan to go out on missions and want to stay in the guild to study and research magic, I naturally can't do nothing. Helping to repair the hall and clean the place more often can also demonstrate his value and win everyone's favor. As for money, he had the traceless extension spell, so he was not worried about not having enough money. He could make some space equipment and sell them in several cities, but that would not make money faster than completing missions. It seems that you know a lot about magic, George. Myra Jane sat next to George and couldn't help but reach out and touch his cat's head. George instinctively felt comfortable when the cat's head was touched, but soon his mind suppressed this physical pleasure and dodged Marajana's hand. Most of them are non-combat magic, which can't be compared with everyone else's. George, you don't need to fight. Just practice the repair magic well. If anyone dares to bully you, all the wizards in our guild will twist off his head and let you kick it like a ball. Sarasuk next to him said with a smile. Although what he said was a joke, it was not an exaggeration. George is now the treasure of the entire guild. Anyone who dares to touch George will have to bear the wrath of all the wizards in the guild, especially the President Makarov. Hearing Sarasuk's words, everyone burst into laughter. George shook his head helplessly. He felt that this was not bad. At least he had a reliable backer in this world and didn't have to worry about safety issues. In this way, the few of them ate and chatted, and by the time they finished it was already dark. After locking the guild door, Myra Jane carried the drunk Kana and walked towards the town center with everyone else. Myra Jane, Levi and the others were going back to the guild dormitory, while George was going back to the hotel. They had walked the first half of the journey together, so they all walked together. After returning to the hotel, George began to summarize the magic knowledge he had learned today, and started the introductory practice of giant magic, trying to make part of his body bigger. It is best to start with the easy ones like fingers and toes, or you can use little George. In the next few days, George entered into a peaceful period of learning and studying magic. He was always the first one to arrive at the guild every day, and then he would go into the library to read, or chase after guild president Marklov in the hall to ask for advice on magic, and occasionally help repair the guild hall and clean. Most of the time at night, he left with Team Levi. Team Levi was not in the guild to do missions, so he was alone. As time passed, he gradually became familiar with the wizards in the guild. I learned some things I didn't know before. It turns out that the magic used by Natsu was not simple fire magic, but dragon-slaying magic, which is the magic used by giant dragons. It is much stronger than ordinary fire magic, and can devour all flames, thereby increasing its own magic power. Therefore, a normal fire wizard will be naturally nemesis when encountering a dragon slayer wizard like Natsu. And Natsu was actually raised by a dragon, and taught magic by a dragon. However, one day the dragon that raised him suddenly disappeared, and he accidentally joined the fairy tale guild. He can be called a human dragon. Sometimes George thought that maybe his magic wand in this world could fall on Natsu. Using Natsu's hair as the core of the wand should be a good choice. Chapter 72, Muggle Repelling Charm. The magic wand can increase the casting speed and magic power, and is an indispensable item for him no matter which world he is in. If he had a magic wand in his hand, his strength would at least double. Compared to Marvel, it is obviously easier to find materials for making magic wands in this world where magic is flourishing. While the cat clone was working hard to learn the magic of the new world, the original cat was also not idle. That day, George appeared at the school gate with Professor X, Wolverine, Gabriella, Isa, Caliban, and the children. "Are you sure this is really okay?" Wolverine was wearing a leather jacket and smoking a cigar, with a look of doubt on his face. In all his years of life, this was the first time he had heard of a mutant with such ability. Professor X, on the other hand, was much calmer. "You have to believe George. Our abilities are diverse and can never be predicted." Based on his understanding of George's character, George generally would not say anything if he was not sure. Since he led them out of the basement, it meant that he was 100% sure. Wing. George cast the wing magic, and a pair of white magic wings grew out from his back, carrying him quickly into the air. Then he waved his hands and chanted a spell. Muggle shielding. George released one Muggle repelling spell after another, which then connected into a large area, covering the entire mutant school. The Muggle repelling charm is a spell created for ordinary people who have no magical powers. After the mutant school is covered by the Muggle repelling charm, ordinary people will automatically ignore the existence of the mutant school when they walk nearby. It was as if in their perception, the school had disappeared and they would automatically take a detour to avoid it. Unless the wizard George points it out, ordinary people can only see the existence of the mutant school. "Okay, let me show you the effect." After landing, George led everyone out of the school. Wolverine looked at George's folded wings and couldn't help but sigh. "I don't know how many abilities they implanted in you. You even have angel wings." There was once a mutant named Angel among the mutants. He was born with a pair of wings on his back that allowed him to fly. Later, he was recruited by Apocalypse, and his abilities were further stimulated. But the angel can't fold its wings automatically like George did. "Oh, shit, it's really gone." Walking out of the school gate, when Wolverine looked back at the school, he suddenly found that the school was gone. What made him even more surprised was that he didn't feel anything wrong at all. Normally, if a building is made to disappear or become invisible, it would be obvious that something is wrong. After all, if such a large building is gone and an empty space is left there, everyone would know that there is a problem. But this is not the case now. He feels very normal. If he had not just come out of school, he would really think that everything in front of him is very reasonable and there can be no school in front. "Look, that's our school." At this time, George spoke and pointed in the direction of the school. The school that had disappeared from everyone's sight came back again. "Oh, God!" The children all exclaimed as they looked at the school that had reappeared. "When you come back, take out this glass bead and you will be able to see the school." At this time, George handed a marble to Wolverine. He stored some magic in the marble. As long as Wolverine held the marble and was affected by the magic in the marble, he could naturally see the school. In fact, this was not safe enough at the moment. After learning the large reinforced defense spell, he could add another layer of defense above the school, which would be truly safe. Otherwise, although this can deceive the perception of ordinary people, if the other party launches a missile directly towards this area, it can still cause damage to the school. That's great, so the kids don't have to stay in the basement all the time. Gabriella's face showed a look of joy, and the children jumped for joy after exclaiming. The basement is so small, and staying there all day without being able to come out is no different from being in prison. But now, at least they can get some sunshine, breathe some fresh air, and walk, run, and move around in this huge school. I still want to remind everyone that you can only move around within the school and cannot leave the school. George gave the kids a reminder. With the exception of Wolverine, Professor X, Gabriella, Isa, and Caliban, he did not intend to give the children marbles that would allow them to enter and leave the school freely. He was worried that if any child ran away out of the house out of mischief, the marbles would fall into the hands of the enemy, which would be troublesome. "Don't worry, they are already very happy to be able to move around in school. I will keep an eye on them," Gabriella said with a smile, and the children nodded. Back at school, George asked Wolverine, "How's Tony Stark doing lately?" Wolverine has been monitoring Tony Stark all this time. Today, as he was going to decorate the school with a Muggle repelling spell, he specially asked Isa to pick him up in a fighter jet. Wolverine replied while smoking a cigar. Since the last press conference, he has spent most of his time in his villa, except for a trip to the Air Force Base, and has not gone out. It seems that this kidnapping has made this playboy behave himself a lot. He has become much more honest. He is probably developing the battle suit that he has not yet completed in the desert cave. Well, don't worry about him for now. George nodded and said nothing more. It seemed like it took Tony Stark several months to develop the battle suit. Now it has been more than 2 months since he was rescued last time, so it will probably take some time before the finished product is ready. Once Tony Stark has made the Iron Man suit, he will go back and completely eliminate Xander Rice. He has never forgotten the big trouble that is Xander Rice. It is not his style to keep defending and waiting for the opponent to launch an attack. Since Xander Rice can create these mutant children, create himself as a combination of Magneto and Professor X, and create X-24 young Wolverine, it may not be impossible for him to create other mutants. It would be really dangerous if the other party sent a bunch of cloned mutants to hunt them down. The Muggle shielding charm can shield ordinary people, but mutants have different abilities. Who knows if they will encounter some bizarre abilities that can just counter the Muggle shielding charm. So he planned to wait for Tony Stark to build the Iron Man suit, and then join forces with Tony Stark to take the initiative to attack and destroy the opponent's lair. Don't underestimate Tony Stark's battlesuit. In terms of firepower output and destructive power, it is much more powerful than his current superpowers and magic, although it is also easy to be restrained. But it doesn't matter, we still have him to cooperate with, plus Wolverine who has returned to his peak. The key is that he knows the tracking spell. So he is not afraid of not being able to find Xander Rice. Chapter 73 Magic Duel. In the Harry Potter world, when George passed by the castle hall in the morning, he found a group of little wizards gathered around the bulletin board, discussing something enthusiastically. When he got closer, he saw a new piece of parchment nailed to the bulletin board. The content of the parchment is that at 8 o'clock tonight, the school will restart the duel club in the auditorium to teach all the young wizards in the school how to fight better with magic. The dueling club was once very popular in Hogwarts. It is said that Flitwick, the current head of Ravenclaw, was a frequent winner of the dueling club when he was in school. In a one-on-one duel, not even the senior wizards could defeat Flitwick. Later, because young wizards were often injured in duels, the school clinic was too busy to handle the situation every day and finally had to cancel the duel. Now it seems that the secret room must have been opened and the young wizard was attacked. Some teachers suggested reopening the duel club to train the young wizards' combat skills so that they can have more self-protection capabilities when facing danger. It's a good opportunity to observe and learn. George naturally has a positive attitude towards the restart of the duel club. His skills in using magic basically come from his own understanding, and many aspects are not formal. As for combat, he actually mostly relies on his superpowers, with magic only playing a supporting role. But in the later stage, he will definitely still focus on magic combat, so it is very important to observe and learn some magic combat skills. At 8 o'clock in the evening, when George and the first-year Slytherin wizards arrived at the Great Hall, the place had changed. 4 long dining tables were put together to form a very luxurious gilded stage, illuminated by hundreds of candles floating in the sky. The ceiling of the auditorium turned as dark as velvet. Almost all the little wizards in the school came, crowded together, each holding his or her own wand, with excitement on their faces. Just as everyone was discussing which professor would teach them magic dueling skills, Lockhart, who was radiant in a purple robe, and Snape, who was dressed in black and had a cold face, walked out. The showy Lockhart started to show off right at the beginning, first boasting about his own magic duel skills, and then describing Snape as his assistant, thereby elevating himself and making Snape's face even colder. George estimated that if one were to ask which teacher in the entire school hated Lockhart the most, Snape would definitely be on the list. If it weren't for the school, if it weren't for the fact that Snape had turned over a new leaf, he thought that Snape wouldn't mind using all 3 unforgivable curses on Lockhart. The key point is that Lockhart has no self-awareness and actually wants to compete with Snape on the spot to set an example for the young wizards. Lockhart and Snape stood on opposite sides of the stage, and at the first 3 bangs they raised their wands over their shoulders. Accept your weapons. Lockhart had only finished chanting half of the spell and moving his wand when Snape's disarming charm was cast. A red beam of magical light hit Lockhart directly, knocking the wand out of his hand, and he himself was bounced out, hitting the stage wall and sliding down. So fast! George saw Snape casting a spell below and couldn't help but sigh. The disarming spell is a second-year spell and is also a spell that is not easy to cast. It is one of the most commonly used spells in wizard battles. It can not only forcibly disarm the opponent, but also knock the opponent away. He had been learning this spell on his own before, and in the past 2 days he had completed it preliminarily and could cast it normally. But his disarming spell was much worse than the one Snape had just cast. Not only was it more powerful, but most importantly, when Snape cast the disarming spell, he reduced the wand swinging motion by more than half, and the speed of chanting the spell was also super fast. It felt like the whole process was completed very smoothly in less than a second. This is also the reason why when Lockhart cast the disarming spell, he was sent flying as soon as he started. And he noticed that at the same time Snape completed the disarming spell, he did not stop his actions, but waved his wand slightly, obviously preparing for the second spell. It's just that Lockhart was too weak and couldn't block any spell, so there was naturally no need for him to cast a second spell. This is a disarming charm, and as you can see, I have lost my wand. But Professor Snape, please don't mind what I say, your intention just now was too obvious. If I wanted to stop you, it would be effortless, but I thought it would be a good idea to let them see it, so that they can learn some lessons about the consequences of being hit by a disarming spell. Lockhart stood up with difficulty, quickly tidied his appearance, then went on stage again and explained shamelessly. Hearing Lockhart's excuses, Snape raised his wand, feeling the urge to cast a killing curse on this guy. As if sensing Snape's murderous intent, Lockhart quickly changed the subject. Okay, now you two will come up and practice. Professor Snape and I will correct some of your mistakes in dueling. After hearing Lockhart's words, most of the young wizards did not doubt it. They raised their hands and went on stage, including George. He didn't believe Lockhart's nonsense, nor did he expect Lockhart to correct them. He was thinking of sparring with senior wizards and asking Snape to help guide his magical combat skills. Lockhart and Snape walked among the young wizards who came on stage and paired them up. George was also paired up, but his opponent was a short first-year Ravenclaw wizard. George, my name is Matthew Flitwick. I admire your learning ability and Quidditch skills, but I think I am far inferior to you. But I may have to apologize to you in advance for this duel. The young wizard was very confident. Even facing the Slytherin star in front of him, he didn't think he would lose in a duel. As a member of the Flitwick family, he inherited the Flitwick family's natural talent for fighting, and he also asked his great-uncle for advice on the techniques of fighting with a wand many times. When other first-year wizards were still practicing the levitation spell, he was already very skilled in using the full-body binding spell to fight. Well, good luck to you then. George smiled and didn't say much. Just kidding, even if he doesn't cast magic, he can easily dodge most magical attacks with his extraordinary physical fitness and cat-like motion capture ability. Plus the amount of magic he has mastered and the amount of magic he practices on a regular basis. Not to mention a first-year wizard, even if it was a wizard who was about to graduate from the 7th grade, he would not necessarily lose. His main purpose this time was to achieve perfection, not because his magic combat skills were really bad. Chapter 74 Duel with Genius George. All petrified. When the battle started, Matthew immediately used the full-body binding spell that he was good at. He used this spell better than the average third-year wizard. However, before he could complete the spell, he felt his whole body stiffen and he couldn't move. It turned out that George had already used the full-body binding spell. The curse stops immediately. George walked up to Matthew, untied the full-body binding spell on him, and said in an encouraging tone. You are already very good. I am just a little faster than you by chance. Even though he won, his character cannot collapse, and he cannot waste the time to win people's hearts. Sure enough, after hearing George's words, Matthew, who had originally looked disappointed, immediately looked much better. I will practice hard when I get back, and I will definitely beat you next time. He also felt that he might be only slightly worse than George. Of course, this was a naive idea that was soon shattered by reality. He would find that he might not be able to defeat George until graduation because George had not used his full strength just now. Stop, everyone stop, we have to fight with wands, not fists. Soon, the two were attracted by Lockhart's anxious shouting. They turned their heads and looked around, only to find that the entire dueling arena had become a mess. Most of the lower-level wizards don't actually know much combat magic, and even if some do, they may not know how to use it in an emergency. People like Matthew can indeed be said to be the best among them. This leads to many young wizards resorting to fighting after discovering that magic cannot win the battle, especially those who already dislike each other. Even Hermione, the top wizard who has mastered dozens of spells, is now in close combat with her opponent, Millicent, a second-year Slytherin. Both of their wands fell to the ground. Hermione was clamped by the opponent's arm around the neck, but she was very unyielding and punched the opponent's thigh, showing great toughness. Girls of this age are just as good as boys in fighting. There were some senior wizards who did not engage in hand-to-hand combat, but they were not so honest. They did not fight with the disarming spell as required, but took the opportunity to experiment with various spells. Among them, the Weasley brothers were the most excited. This resulted in some young wizards starting to suffer various injuries. Stand up, Macmillan. Watch out, Miss Fawcett. Squeeze hard, the bleeding will stop soon, boot. Lockhart jumped around in the crowd, looking a little panicked. This was not the result he wanted. Snape on the other side obviously didn't care. Maybe he thought the injury to the little wizard was nothing. Snape's attention was on Harry and Malfoy. He just wanted to see Harry get beaten by Malfoy, but Harry was obviously very talented in magical combat, and he and Malfoy were evenly matched. One was dancing under the dancing curse, and the other was laughing under the tickle curse. Collapse! Collapse! George shook his head and waved 2 stunning spells to knock down Hermione and Millicent who were fighting. Then he moved through the crowd, casting spells one after another, and soon all the first and second grade wizards who were fighting in a group were knocked down. After that, he pointed his wand at the senior wizards. Some 3rd and 4th year wizards were no match for him until he faced the 2 most powerful 7th year wizards. Collapse! Armor! Expelliarmus! The little wizards in the upper grades are not comparable to those in the lower grades. As soon as George joined the battle, he realized the strength of the 7th grade wizards who fought seriously. His stunning spell was indeed very fast, but the opponent's armor spell was not slow either. It not only blocked his stunning spell, but also used a disarming spell on him. Fortunately, although he did not know the armor spell, his physical reaction ability was far beyond that of ordinary people, and he quickly dodged the attack of the disarming spell. It's George. You want to compete with us? Then be careful. Seeing the first-year Slytherin star join the battle, the 2 7th-year wizards were a little surprised, but they had no intention of stopping. So the duel between the two turned into a 3-way fight. The 2 7th-grade wizards cast various difficult spells frequently, and magical lights shot like lasers. This fierce battle quickly attracted the attention of the entire audience. In fact, when George helped to knock out those young wizards in the lower grades, he had already attracted the attention of many young wizards who did not participate in the battle. As the star of Slytherin, a famous school, and the youngest player on the World Quidditch team, George took the initiative to step on stage for a magic duel. Many young wizards are already paying attention to him, to the same extent as Harry Potter, the savior. Now George has boldly joined the duel between the 7th grade wizards, and the key is that he has persisted in not being eliminated, which makes everyone unable to take their eyes off him. I didn't expect that besides being good at studying and playing Quidditch, he is also so talented in magical combat. I suspect he must have cat blood in him. Look, he didn't even use a protective shield and just dodged all the spell attacks. So handsome, and a little cute, Merlin, I'm actually impressed by the handsomeness of a first-grade boy. I'm just 3 years older than him. Age is not a problem. I want to talk. As the discussion below grew louder, Snape and Lockhart also noticed the situation here. Seeing that George was able to hold his own in the melee with 2 7th-year wizards, Snape immediately showed a gratified smile on his face. It had to be George. If it weren't for the fact that George and Harry had a good relationship, he would never have let the useless Malfoy fight Harry. It seems that I should teach him a few more combat spells when I have time. He was very satisfied with George's talent in magic combat, but George was at a disadvantage when fighting senior wizards with the same few spells over and over again, which made him think of teaching George his own original spells in advance. And considering that the door of the secret chamber was opened, if George could master more spells, he would be able to protect himself in danger. I used to think that George was only in the 1st grade and didn't need to learn those powerful spells so early. It was too difficult. Now it seems that it is not impossible. Geniuses should not be taught according to common sense. Everyone, please pay attention. George is doing very well. He has often asked me for advice on magic combat techniques during this period. He has learned a lot from me. At this time, Lockhart stood up shamelessly again. Snape was so angry when he heard this that he almost kicked this guy off the stage. He knew that George often went to Lockhart for advice on magic, but it was not any magical combat skills at all, but just spells such as the Oblivion Charm, the False Memory Charm, and the Memory Filling Charm. At this time, he was more determined to find time to teach George the spells he invented, so that next time George used them, and Lockhart said that he taught him, he would slap Lockhart in the face on the spot and see how Lockhart could argue. Chapter 75 Night Bus. Accept your weapons. Collapse. George took advantage of the gap between the two 7th grade wizards' attacks and directly used his speed advantage to get close to them from behind. He put his wand against their backs and cast magic, and finally won the game by chance. To be honest, if it weren't for his physical advantage, he would not be a match for the two 7th grade wizards in terms of magic level and magic combat skills. However, this battle also gave him a lot of new insights into magic duels in the Harry Potter world. In particular, some of the magical skills learned during the battle between the two 7th grade wizards did benefit him a lot. George helped maintain order and showed excellent dueling skills. Although he still needs to improve compared to me, it's already pretty good. 20 points more. Lockhart stepped forward and hugged George, causing Snape, who was a step slower, to raise his eyebrows. However, considering that Snape was giving George extra points, he did not say much, but turned around and walked to the center of the stage. It seems that you idiots are still unable to master the dueling skills. Let's do this. 2 by 2, Professor Lockhart and I will give you one-on-one guidance, and then we can duel. Professor Snape's suggestion is very good. I will guide George. Lockhart named George directly. A flash of cold light flashed in Snape's eyes. George is too good to be a good role model. I think Malfoy and Potter are good. I will guide Malfoy and you will guide Potter. That's fine. Lockhart thought that Harry's fame was no less than George's, which was not bad either. All the young wizards left the stage, leaving only Snape, Malfoy, Harry, and Lockhart on the stage. George was standing in the audience. He knew what was going to happen next, but he did not try to stop it. He needed the incident of the Chamber of Secrets to continue to cause a stir, because only in this way would Dumbledore be temporarily suspended from school in the next semester, and he would have the opportunity to wipe out all the dark magic in the restricted area. Given his current situation, if he wants to learn dark magic such as the 3 unforgivable curses and the fiery fire curse, he can only rely on the restricted area. But normally, whenever he entered the restricted area, Dumbledore would monitor him secretly, so that he would not dare to take the risk of reading the magic books that recorded the dark arts. In fact, he is now very similar to the young Voldemort in many ways. If he shows interest in the dark arts, Dumbledore will probably be restless. So he was also paying special attention to restraining himself. Sure enough, in the duel between Harry and Malfoy, because Malfoy used the snake summoning charm, Harry revealed for the first time in front of everyone that he had inherited Voldemort's ability to speak snake language, which caused great chaos. Most of the school thought that Harry was the heir of Slytherin because only Slytherins could speak Parseltongue. However, the dueling club was still held every night, and George would be there every night to train in magic duels with those 7th-year wizards, and his skills in using wands to fight were improving day by day. Soon, it was Christmas Eve and the school was officially on holiday. The Christmas holiday at Hogwarts lasted more than 2 weeks. After saying goodbye to his professors and classmates, George carried his suitcase and his pet Peppa and boarded the Hogwarts Express for the return trip. When he first came to school half a year ago, he was just an insignificant little wizard who was proficient in some introductory magic such as the unlocking charm. Now he is a famous Slytherin star in school, and he has never been defeated in a one-on-one challenge against a 7th-year wizard in magic. This is when he didn't use his superpowers. If he used his superpowers, his strength would be much stronger. After all, his superpowers have improved significantly compared to when school started, and he can easily control objects weighing several hundred kilograms. In the evening, before it was completely dark, George walked out of King's Cross Station. Unlike other young wizards who had parents to take them home with them, he, as an orphan, had to return to his home in Knockturn Alley alone. He did not inform Tonks when he returned to Knockturn Alley for Christmas this time, so there was no way Tonks would pick him up in a magic car like she did last time. Favors should not be wasted on trivial matters. Even the best relationships will become distant if they are always wasted like this. Night bus. Standing by the road, George raised his wand and waved it in the air, then shouted loudly. In less than a minute, accompanied by a deafening roar, a bright purple 3-decker bus appeared in front of George. It is not very convenient to take the subway or taxi with an owl as big as Paige. He doesn't know the disillusionment charm and can't fly openly. So he chose the night bus, a magical public transportation commonly used in the British wizarding world. The night bus is a magical public transportation tool specially set up by the Ministry of Magic to facilitate underage wizards or wizards who are weak and cannot apparate. Inspired by the Muggle bus, it has been transformed by magic and is very fast, and can take you anywhere in the UK. It went on operation in 1865 and was well received by wizards. Welcome aboard the night bus, emergency transport for wizards in distress. Just hold out your wand hand, hop aboard, and we'll take you wherever you want to go. My name is Stan Shunpike, and I'm your conductor tonight. A young wizard in a purple uniform jumped out of the bus and said to George. George looked at the magic bus with some curiosity. Then got on the bus with his luggage. Hello, Mr. Thornpack, please go to the Leaky Cauldron. 7 silver sickles, 10 get you chocolate, 11 get you a hot water bottle and a toothbrush, pick any color you want. The salesman wizard followed closely and got on the car. By the way, what's your name? George, that's 7 silver sickles. George placed the luggage on a bed and took out 7 silver sickles. The interior of the night bus is different from that of an ordinary bus. Instead of individual seats, there are brass beds with magic candles lit on the bedside brackets. Wizards on the bus can sleep directly on the bed after getting on the bus until they reach their destination. George, why does this name sound so familiar? You look familiar too. The wizard salesman was stunned for a moment when he heard this, then he quickly rummaged through the discarded newspaper box next to him and pulled out a newspaper from a month ago. He looked at the newspaper, then at George, and immediately exclaimed with wide eyes. So you are George, the Quidditch genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. It seems that I am somewhat famous in the entire wizarding world. George nodded and smiled when he saw this, but did not deny it. The salesman wizard was obviously also a Quidditch fan. After discovering George's identity, his attitude suddenly improved a lot and he started chatting with George very talkatively. This is the celebrity effect. Even if it's someone you don't know, there will be a hidden bonus to your favorability when you first meet them. Go ahead, earn. The salesman wizard greeted the driver wizard, and the night bus suddenly made a roar and flew out at a speed that was difficult to discern with the naked eye, as if it had entered another space. The street lights, mailboxes, and trash cans blocking the way automatically jumped out of the way when the car passed, and returned to their original positions after the car passed. Chapter 76 George should not be underestimated. When I learn alchemy in the future, I will definitely build a magic school bus like this for the mutant school. Seeing this, George couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In fact, he has always had an idea in his heart. That is to reopen the mutant school, but it will no longer be named the mutant school, but the school for superpowered humans. The era of mutants is gone forever, but they still left a deep mark in the historical archives of major forces. It is impossible for students in school to stay in school forever without going out. Sooner or later they will have to learn to integrate into human society and live there. This cannot continue forever. If the mutant school were to be reopened, it would inevitably bring back memories of the past. The name mutant makes people think that they are a different race and will be excluded sooner or later. So they simply changed the name to the School for Superpowered Humans. In addition to cultivating mutant children in the school, they can also accept some children with superpowers as students and recruit superheroes from all walks of life as teachers. In this way, they can not only dilute the label of mutants, but also win over many current and future superheroes to their side. If the school encounters trouble again, he doesn't have to take action, the teachers and students can handle it, and he can also study his magic in peace. No need to worry about trivial matters anymore. Of course, this is just a preliminary idea. Whether it can be implemented and how to implement it will need to be decided based on future developments. In less than 10 minutes, the night bus pulled up to the door of the Leaky Cauldron. Goodbye, Mr. Thornpack. After saying hello to the wizard conductor, George got off the bus carrying his luggage. When we entered Diagon Alley from the Leaky Cauldron, it was already completely dark. Most of the shops in Diagon Alley were closed, and only a few wizards were left on the street. The freezing cold wind blew across my face, seeming to foreshadow the trouble that was to come. George walked along the cobblestone path, past Partridge's Cauldron Shop, Gig's Pharmacy, and Florin's Cold Drink Shop, and came to Nocturne Alley opposite Gringotts. He strode in. There is almost no one in Diagon Alley at night, but the opposite is true for Nocturne Alley. Many dark wizards like to come to Nocturne Alley at night to buy and sell some prohibited items. So George never went out at night before because it was too dangerous. But now, he doesn't care so much. Isn't this little Dora? Is she back from vacation? Not long after entering Nocturne Alley, a skinny old wizard blocked George's way and looked at George's suitcase with ill intent. When the other dark wizards nearby saw this, none of them came forward to stop it. Instead, they stopped and watched the show with a gloating look on their faces. Many dark wizards here knew George. They knew that he was the little slave adopted by old Merton from the potion shop. But now this little slave not only inherited old Merton's large inheritance, but also went to Hogwarts to study. Naturally, this made them feel unhappy and jealous, as most of their wealth was not as great as old Merton's. It's just that old Merton had just died, those Aurors often went to the store, and George seldom went out, so they didn't have much chance. However, now, half a year had passed, the Aurors no longer came, and we just happened to meet them at night. There was no reason to let it go. Killing him is impossible. If he kills a Hogwarts student, he will definitely be wanted by the entire Ministry of Magic, and he will no longer be able to stay in the British wizarding world. But there is definitely no problem with a robbery. Aurors are unlikely to make a big fuss over a robbery, especially since this happened in an alley. They can only blame themselves for their bad luck. I think you'd better get out of the way. George drew out his wand like lightning and pointed it at the old wizard. The sharp blade flashed with cold light and flew out from George's sleeve and stopped on the old wizard's neck. How could it be so fast? Feeling the cold murderous intent of the sharp blade at his neck, the old wizard's face was full of horror, and other wizards nearby also showed expressions of disbelief. The moving object spell is not a very profound spell. It can be used to move things in daily life. In battle, it can also be used to block the enemy's magic by moving objects, or directly smash the enemy. Unlike the levitation charm, which makes objects float and requires manual effort to move, the translocation charm can move objects directly. What shocked everyone was not that George had learned the moving object charm, but the speed at which George used the moving object charm. Without waving the wand or chanting any spell, the moving blade flew towards the old wizard's neck, and the speed of the key blade was so fast that the man had no time to react. This level of attainment in the object moving spell is already at the master level. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, when the experienced old wizard sees George waving spells and chanting incantations, he will take the initiative to use magic to attack, or at worst he can defend or dodge. It was because George was so fast that the old wizard was restrained before he could react. If George wanted to, he could control the blade to cut the old wizard's neck. Little Dora, I don't have any other intentions. I'll get out of the way. I'll get out of the way right now. The old wizard swallowed and slowly stepped back to make way. Seeing this, the other dark wizards did not dare to step forward to stop him. The most important thing in the world of dark wizards is that the strong are respected. If you don't have strength, everyone will want to tear a piece of flesh from you. If you have strength, naturally no one will dare to provoke you. If your strength is strong enough and can bring them benefits, they will rush to follow you. With a wave of his wand, the blade was retracted, and George continued forward, pulling the box. When passing by the old wizard, Peppa, who was standing on the box, suddenly stretched out her claws and grabbed the old wizard, immediately tearing off half of his wizard robe. If George hadn't stopped it from moving, it would have gone straight forward and crushed the old wizard's head. The old wizard retreated in a hurry and sat down on the ground in fear, but he did not dare to fight back and attack George and Peppa. He just used a repair spell to repair his torn wizard robe. This guy should not be underestimated in the future. At this moment, George's small figure and his owl left a deep impression in the hearts of all the dark wizards. At such a young age, he actually has such magical abilities. The key is his calm and composed attitude. Even the former Dark Lord is not as good as him at this age. That's good. Showing my claws appropriately can prevent these guys from causing trouble again. George pulled his suitcase and soon arrived at the door of his potion shop. Of course, what he just used was not the moving object spell. He did know how to use it, but his level was only average. It was good for moving things around, but he couldn't use it in combat. He had just used his own magnetic control, and had drawn out his wand only to cover it up. Chapter 77, Hit me until you are willing to teach me. Sure enough, it was robbed. Pushing the door and walking into the potion shop, George couldn't help but twitching his lips when he saw the messy scene inside. The potion shop was in a mess at this time, as if it had been robbed. Apparently, a dark wizard had come in and robbed it during the 6 months that he had been studying at Hogwarts. Fortunately, he had already sold all the valuables, so the other party probably returned empty-handed. Restored to the original condition. Waving his wand and casting a repair spell, the messy potion shop quickly returned to the state it was in before he left. The main reason is that he has not learned the protective spell yet, otherwise he could cast some anti-unlocking spells and protective spells before leaving, so that ordinary dark wizards cannot get in. This kind of petty theft dark wizard cannot be very strong. A truly powerful dark wizard would not do such a shameful thing. Cleaned up. After cleaning and packing his luggage, George began to read by lamplight again. The magic book he was reading now was called An Introduction to Wand Learning, a magic book that specifically explained wand knowledge, and the publisher was none other than the wand-making master Ollivander. It explains a lot of knowledge about magic wands. Of course, it only popularized the knowledge about magic wands, but did not mention how to make them at all. A wand is made up of two main parts, the wand wood and the core. Not all wood is suitable for making wands. Only trees that contain magical properties can be used to make wands. This tree is rare and difficult to find. It looks the same as ordinary trees of the same species, and it takes years of experience to recognize the difference. But there is also a simpler method, which is to see if there is a bowtruckle's nest on the tree. Generally, trees with bowtruckle's nest can be used to make magic wands. Different types of trees make wands with different characteristics. Finding a wand that suits your characteristics can help you get twice the result with half the effort when casting spells. For example, a wand made of acacia can only be unleashed to its full power by the most talented wizards. Otherwise, it will make strange noises and smell bad, greatly reducing the power of the magic. Wands made of alder wood like wizards who are kind-hearted and helpful, wands made of apple wood like wizards who have goals and ideals, wands made of cedar wood like wizards who are tough and loyal, and so on. The length, hardness, and elasticity of the wand will also affect its power. The core of the wand is even more critical. It is much more important than the wood of the wand. The increase in the power of the magic wand's spells mainly depends on the choice of the core. It is usually made of the hair and organs of magical animals, such as the hair of a vela, the tail feathers of a thestral, the beard of a troll, the heart nerves of a bird like man-eater, and the spines of a white river monster. The most precious of these are the unicorn's tail hair, the dragon's heart nerves and the phoenix's tail feathers. Unicorn's tail hair. Seeing this, George silently took out a small box from the suitcase, opened it, and revealed several bundles of unicorn tail hair inside. He knew that wizards like Ollivander probably weren't short of money, so it would be very difficult to pay gold galleons to get him to teach him how to make a wand. That's why he prepared this rare unicorn tail hair. As the most sacred magical animal, the unicorn is full of treasures. Unicorn blood can sustain life, and even if you are on the brink of death, it can force you to stay alive. Unicorn horns can be used to make high-level potions, and 1 gram of ground powder is worth 21 gold galleons. Unicorn's tail hair is the best material for making magic wands. However, the number of exclusive beasts is extremely small, and there are only a few of them in the world. There happen to be several unicorns alive in the Forbidden Forest, although Voldemort killed one last year. A few days before leaving school, George secretly left the castle at night and used his wing magic to quietly fly into the Forbidden Forest. He used his psychic powers to communicate with the creatures in the Forbidden Forest, avoided dangers such as centaurs and 8-eyed giant spiders, and found the few surviving unicorns. Then he used magnetism to control the blade and cut off all the unicorns' tails at lightning speed, thus harvesting several bundles of snow-white unicorn tail hair. Anyway, the unicorn's tail hair is similar to a horse's tail. It will grow back after a few years after being cut and will not cause any harm. He didn't believe that so much unicorn tail hair couldn't be used to hit Ollivander and teach him how to make a wand. You should know that a normal unicorn's tail has about 2,000 tail hairs, and 1 tail feather can make a top-level magic wand. George harvested the tails of 4 unicorns, which means a total of 8,000 tail hairs. He would smash it until Ollivander was willing to teach him. The next morning, George pushed open the door of the potion shop and it was already white outside. It snowed all night last night, making Nocturne Alley, which usually looks eerie, a little less scary. Walking on the white snow, leaving a series of footprints, George walked out of Nocturne Alley and came to the door of Ollivander's wand shop on the south side of Diagon Alley. This was his second time coming to this wand shop, the first time being to buy a wand before school started. Ollivander's wand shop can be said to be one of the oldest shops in Diagon Alley. It has been making wands since 382 BC. It looks small and a bit shabby, and the golden sign on the door is peeling off. As I pushed the door open and walked in, I immediately heard the ding-dong sound of reminders coming from the store. Good afternoon, do you need to buy a wand? An old man with silver eyes and white hair greeted me softly. It was Garrick Ollivander, the owner of the shop. George walked slowly up to Ollivander with a small smile on his face. Good afternoon, Mr. Ollivander, my name is George, and I am not here to buy a wand, but I would like to learn the techniques of making a wand from you. You are kidding, right? Ollivander's face suddenly froze. He felt that the little wizard must be playing tricks on him. Upon hearing this, George took out a large bag of 100 gold galleons and placed it on the counter. I can pay the tuition, as long as you are willing to teach. The tuition amount is up to you. I'm sorry, I can't teach you. Ollivander glanced at the gold galleons on the table, showing a look of surprise, but then shook his head decisively. The fact that he could come up with so many gold galleons showed that he really wanted to learn wand-making technology. However, wand-making technology was the foundation of the Ollivander family's survival in the wizarding world, so how could he teach it to outsiders casually? Not to mention 100, even if it was 10,000 gold galleons, he wouldn't be able to teach. Seeing Ollivander's determined expression, George sighed, knowing that it would be useless to impress Ollivander with gold galleons, and then put the box containing 4 bundles of unicorn tail feathers on the table. What if I use this as tuition? Reaching out and opening the box, George pushed the box in front of Ollivander. Nothing can be used as tuition fee, not even the hair of a unicorn's tail. Ollivander, who had been calm at first, almost jumped up on the spot after seeing 4 bundles of unicorn tail hair. And his pair of silver eyes seemed to be fixed on the box. Chapter 78 Wand Making Skill Obtained. George, from today on, you are my student at Ollivander's. I will do my best to train you to be a wand-making master like me. Inside the wand shop, Ollivander held the box of unicorn tail hair tightly with trembling hands and made a solemn promise to George. Don't get too excited. I believe you. George saw that the old Ollivander's eyes were bloodshot at this moment, and he was afraid that he would be too excited and accidentally cut them off. For a wizard like Ollivander who has spent almost his entire life studying wands, giving him 8,000 unicorn tail hairs is just like giving a martial arts fanatic 8,000 top-level martial arts secrets, or giving a pervert 8,000 top-notch beauties. Not to mention asking him to teach you the technique of making a stick, he wouldn't hesitate even if you kneel down and call you dad. Okay, when do you want to start learning? Ollivander managed to calm down his overly excited emotions and then asked. With so many top-quality wand cores, perhaps before he died, he could really research and develop the most powerful wand comparable to the legendary Elder Wand, and become a legend in the wizarding world and the wand-making world. Now, if possible. George was unwilling to waste time and wanted to learn how to make a magic wand sooner so that his original body and his other clone could have magic wands sooner and their strength would increase significantly. Touching the box of unicorn tail hair in his hand, Ollivander stood up without hesitation, hung a closed sign at the door, and took George to the backyard. Since George wants to learn now, he will teach now. Thus, George began his joyful holiday journey of making sticks. Even on Christmas Day, he did not let Ollivander go. He took him to study until dark before returning to the potion shop. However, on the morning of Christmas Day, he still took some time to pick out various gifts for Paige to send out. Among them were Tonks and her Auror colleagues, her Slytherin classmates, friends like Harry, Ron, Hermione, Luna, Ginny, and every professor in the school. He even sent a copy to Dumbledore. Of course, they were not expensive things. Although he was not short of money, gifts could not be too expensive, otherwise it would not be a favor but a burden. Because the other party also wants to return the gift. And so time went on until the day before the end of the Christmas holiday. This one is very good. It can barely be considered a qualified wand. You have a good talent for wand making, but don't be too proud. You still need to continue practicing after you return to school. Ollivander looked at the wand in his hand, which was made of a troll's beard as the core and a pine trunk as the wood, and nodded with great satisfaction. At first, he just wanted to teach George a lesson. Wand making is not an easy craft to learn. Basic knowledge of materials, processing of the wand core, polishing of the wand wood, etc., it is impossible to get started without a few months. But what was unexpected was that George actually had a very high talent for wand making. First of all, the other party understood a lot of the complicated basic knowledge as soon as he explained it. Secondly, he had strong hands-on ability and seldom made mistakes. In just half a month, he successfully made a qualified magic wand. Although there are still some flaws, they are not very important and can be sold normally in the store. Thank you for your guidance during this period. I will come to ask you for advice after the summer vacation. George said goodbye to Ollivander politely, then pushed the door and left the wand shop. The reason why he could learn to make wands so quickly was not because he had a great talent for wand making, but mainly because he had 3 brains to learn at the same time and physical fitness far beyond that of normal wizards. In addition, I had read many magic books about wand making in school, so I had a certain basic foundation. This kid, if he studies wand making in the future, he won't be worse than me. Ollivander sighed again as he watched George disappear. At the same time, at the Fairy Tale Guild, George flew out of the library and landed in the guild hall. He glanced around the hall and asked Myra Jane at the bar. Have you seen Natsu? In this magical world, it is extremely easy to grow trees that contain magic. You can find a few suitable ones by flying around the big forest behind the guild. If you want to be more sophisticated, you can spend a little more money to go to a magic shop to look for it. Now that we have the stick wood, the next step is the stick core. The wand core is actually not difficult to make. There are many magical creatures in this world, and fairy tale wizards often take on missions to defeat magical creatures that attack towns. It won't be difficult to ask them to bring some fur or horns to themselves at that time. At worst, he himself is a magic cat, and he can pull out a strand of his own hair to serve as the core of the wand, but the effect will definitely not be very good. He looked for Natsu because he heard that Natsu was raised by a fire dragon, could use dragon-slaying magic, and had a physique close to that of a fire dragon. He wanted to try whether his hair could be used as a wand core. According to the history books of this world, dragons are the most powerful magical creatures in this world. If Natsu's hair had even 1% of the dragon's effect, it would be stronger than most magical creatures. So he wanted to give it a try. You mean Natsu? He accepted a mission to find a book and teamed up with Lucy to do it. Myra Jane replied gently. Libby, who was standing at the task bulletin board looking for a task, ran over quickly after hearing the words. Is it the $200,000 book-finding mission? I was still hesitating whether to take it, but Natsu got there first. The 200,000 yuan book-finding mission is relatively less dangerous, but it is a waste of time. By then the guild will divide the team into 3 people and split the money equally, so each person will not get much. If you deduct the round-trip travel expenses, food and accommodation, and the possible consumption of some magic props, it will be even less. So she had been hesitating whether to accept it. Perhaps you were right not to accept it, Libby. The mission client has raised the reward from 200,000 to 2 million. At this time, President Makarov jumped down from the 2nd floor and landed on the bar. What? A reward of 2 million for finding a book? This is almost as much as the reward for a large-scale crusade mission. When the wizards in the guild heard the president's words, they immediately started talking. Many magicians regretted not taking the book-finding mission and missed out on the 2 million yuan reward. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Now that Natsu was gone, George returned to the library again, but he also felt that Levi was right not to take the mission. High rewards mean high risks, and it is definitely not just a simple task of finding books. To be honest, the strength of Team Levi is not that good. Libby's 3-dimensional text magic has many effects, but the attack power of each one is too low. The most important thing is that she herself is not good at fighting and has some problems with her mentality. Her 2 teammates are not as strong as her. To be honest, even George, who doesn't have a magic wand now, is no match for these 3 people if he gets serious. Chapter 79 Voldemort's Diary. Any clues? In the Hogwarts library, George, who had just returned to school, looked at Harry and the other 2 and asked with a smile. Before leaving school, he told the 3 little ones the password for the Slytherin dormitory that week. No. Harry looked a little depressed, but Ron said confidently. Although there are no clues, I can be sure that it is definitely Malfoy. Who else in the school could be the heir of Slytherin besides him? But Malfoy's behavior at the time didn't seem like he was lying. Hermione shook her head, not quite agreeing with Ron's statement. On Christmas Eve, the 3 of them successfully used Polyjuice Potion to transform into Malfoy's followers, and entered the Slytherin common room with the password given by George. But they didn't get the answer they wanted, because Malfoy did not admit that he opened the Chamber of Secrets. So this battle plan failed. Don't worry, take your time. Even the professor and his men can't find any clues, which means that the successor is hiding very well. George said soothingly and continued reading the magic book. Recently he began to study the armor spell, a spell with extremely strong defensive power. In the magic duel before Christmas, he found that this spell was really useful in battle. When the 7th grade wizard cast this spell, he was like a turtle shell, and it was impossible to break it without a sneak attack from behind. The key is that after he had a certain understanding of the iron armor spell, he realized that this spell can not only defend against magic, but also defend against physical attacks. Even Muggle firearms cannot penetrate the shield charm. However, the armor spell also has its disadvantages, which is that it can only defend one side, and it requires continuous input of magic power from the wand to maintain it. This also means that other magic cannot be used to counterattack at the same time. If you want to counterattack, you must first stop the defense of the iron armor spell. This shortcoming is nothing for George, because in addition to magic attacks, he also has superpowers. You can use the iron armor spell to defend in the front, and then use superpowers to control blades and needles to attack, or directly use a gun to perform arc tracking shooting. The only trouble is that this spell is a 5th grade spell, which is quite difficult. It will probably take some time to master it if 3 heads are learning it at the same time. By the way, we found this. It may be related to the opening of the secret room 50 years ago. At this time, Harry took out a small, thin, tattered black cover book from his book bag and placed it on the table in the library. This is a diary with trademark Riddle's name on it. Ron said he saw it in the trophy room. Riddle received a special contribution award 50 years ago. Hermione guessed that he probably won the award because he caught the man who opened the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. Voldemort's Horcrux diary. George looked at the diary on the table, feeling the evil and powerful soul aura and tempting spiritual suggestions in it. His face froze, and then he quickly forced himself back to normal. So what did you see written in the diary? Nothing, just a blank. I tried using the apparition charm and the apparition eraser, but they didn't work. So I wanted to ask if you have any solution. Hermione replied somewhat helplessly. She felt that there must be something recorded in the diary, hidden by special magic. George had read more books than her, so perhaps he knew how to decipher it. George wanted to reach for the notebook, but reason quickly restrained this desire. If he told the 3 little ones to hand over the notebook to him so that he could study it, then given their trust in him, they would definitely agree. Then perhaps he could use the soul of young Voldemort in the diary to gain a great deal of knowledge about the dark arts. However, reason told him that he absolutely could not do this. On the one hand, Dumbledore might have been keeping an eye on Voldemort's diary for a long time. If he took it from Harry, Dumbledore would definitely be watching him, and everything would fall into Dumbledore's eyes. On the other hand, even if he had psychic abilities, there was no guarantee that he would not be tempted by Voldemort's dark magic, which was too dangerous. To be safe, it is better not to contact for the time being. It would be safer and more reliable for him to go to the restricted area to learn the dark arts after Dumbledore left Hogwarts Castle. In fact, he tried to find Snape's Half-Blood Prince's notes to see if he could learn the sharpshooter charm in advance, but he never found it. However, before the Christmas holiday, Snape revealed that he might teach him some original spells this semester. I wonder if the Knife and Shadow Curse is one of them. I have read in a book about alchemy that many magic items have their own thoughts because they are given the awakening spell. If you don't get their approval, you can't use their abilities. This diary may not be an ordinary diary. It may be attached with a spiritual awakening spell. You can try to communicate with him. How to communicate? Harry looked confused. Talk to it. I don't know either. Talk to it, or write directly on it. You can go back and try it slowly. George prompted with a smile. The 3 kids thought what he said made sense, waved to George, and quickly left the library, planning to go back to the common room to give it a try. Thank you, George. Polite. George took a deep breath and continued to read the magic book. Some risks can be taken, but some risks cannot be taken. For the next period of time, because Ginny lost her diary and it was picked up by Harry, the Chamber of Secrets was never opened again and the school became quiet again for a while. Half a month later, at the mutant school, George looked at the pile of wood in front of him and couldn't help frowning. There isn't one that fits. He asked Leon to send his men to collect all kinds of wood in the world, but none of them was suitable for making a wand. Now that he has learned how to make a magic wand, he must be thinking about owning one from Marvel as soon as possible so that his magic can exert its greatest power. However, this is not Harry Potter and fairy tale after all, and there is no corresponding substitute in a short period of time. The wand core is easy to deal with. After his attempts, he can temporarily use the hair of Professor X, the most powerful psychic, as a substitute. If Phoenix is still alive, using her hair would be even better. But no suitable replacement has been found for the cane. In his expectation, if he could use the trunk of the World Tree as a wand, he could definitely make a top-level magic wand. Unfortunately, the trunk of the World Tree was not something he could access now. Or the branches on Groot's body should also work, after all, they can be used as the handle of Storm Rage. But Groot is in the universe now, and he can't go there now. In fact, in George's opinion, it is not impossible to use other things to make the staff instead of trees, such as URU metal, the best magic metal in Asgard, and the effect is definitely not bad. Likewise, he can't get it now. After all, what else can replace it? Chapter 80, Scientifically Modified Wand. Just as George was thinking about how to find a replacement for the staff in this world, Wolverine made a video call. George, a silver robot-like thing just flew out of Stark's mansion at a very fast speed. This is the photo I took. Wolverine sent over a somewhat blurry photo. It seems to have been preliminarily completed. Looking at the unpainted first-generation Mark suit in the photo, George knew that Tony Stark had successfully developed the epic-making weapon, the Iron Suit, after a period of seclusion. Maybe this guy can help a little. As his thoughts turned, he had some ideas in his mind. Logan, I'll have Issa pick you up later. Why, you don't need to continue monitoring and protecting him. Wolverine had a confused look on his face. George nodded. No need, come back and have a rest. We will pay a formal visit tomorrow. His idea was simple. Since he couldn't find a suitable piece of wood to make a magic wand, why not use the world's black technology to see if he could use the power of technology to make a magic wand? He did not require this wand to amplify his magical power like a normal wand, he only asked for it to be usable normally, so that he could get rid of the shortcoming of slow gesture casting and make magic play a role in battle. At this stage, the only person he knows who has the ability to do this is probably Tony Stark. It just so happened that Tony Stark had already developed the Iron Man suit, so his plan to counterattack Ackley Genetics and eliminate the hidden danger of Sander Rice could be put on the agenda. He had been keeping a low profile before and had not caused trouble for Dr. Rice because he was not strong enough. At that time, an X-24 coupled with a sniper was a big threat to them. But now, even without using magic, he could easily deal with it by just using his ability of magnetic control. And his magical ability is no longer just an unlocking spell, but he has learned dozens of spells, including some high-level spells. I also learned giant magic and light magic during this period. The overall strength has increased more than 10 times compared to before. What's more, he is not alone. He also has Wolverine, who has recovered his peak fighting power in his youth. If Tony Stark is added, the team will be foolproof. Don't underestimate Tony Stark. Although he is only wearing the first generation of the Iron Man suit, he also has supersonic flight speed and various high-tech weapons for long-range attacks. Unless he encounters an enemy that can restrain his abilities, like George, most superheroes are no match for him. Since Dr. Rice cloned Wolverine, it is natural that he can also clone other mutants. If he delays too long, he might suffer a big disaster. It is better to take the initiative than to passively wait for the other party to come to him. He has had this idea for a long time. If we can make a magic wand that can be used this time, we will set off immediately. After hanging up the video, George asked ISA to fly a fighter jet to Tony Stark's private mansion in Malibu, Los Angeles, California, to pick up Wolverine who was hiding nearby. Not long after Wolverine left, Tony returned wearing the Iron Man suit, and fell from the roof of his mansion, smashing a luxury car worth millions of dollars. He took off his iron armor and applied an ice pack. Looking at the simplified version of the arc reactor that his assistant Pepper had packed for him, he couldn't help but feel a little touched. Sitting in his studio, he said to the intelligent butler Jarvis. Jarvis, for the record, just now when we were above 40,000 feet, the main sensor malfunctioned and there was some problem with the shell pressurization. I think it may be caused by ice. Sir, your observation is very sharp. If you intend to go into space, you must improve the shell material. Jarvis gave advice. Tony thought for a moment and ordered. Contact Cisco and ask them to reselect the shell material and change it to the gold titanium alloy used by the Seraph tactical satellite. This will not only ensure the integration requirements, but also maintain its power-to-weight ratio. Understood, sir. Do you want to display the graphics according to the required specifications? Okay. The renderings are complete. This color combination is a bit too dazzling. Tony looked at the golden Iron Man suit on the computer and couldn't help shaking his head. Using gold for everything makes him look too nouveau-riche and lowers his taste. It's my fault. You've always been low-key and simple. Jarvis's answer seemed to contain some ridicule, but Tony didn't care. He glanced at the sports car next to him and replied. Add a little bit of that sports car red. Okay, it matches your low-key image. The coloring is done. In a few seconds, the brand new golden and red steel battlesuit appeared on the computer. Tony took a look and nodded with satisfaction. I like it very much, let's assemble it. Automatic assembly has begun. It is expected to be completed in 5 hours. Have you found any relevant information about George? At this moment, Tony suddenly thought of something and asked. After he came back last time, he did not tell anyone about George, including his most trusted Pepper. This was his promise to George. But out of curiosity, he still wanted to know who George was who saved him. No sir, we searched all persons named George, but found none that matched your description. Isn't his name George? Iron Man hesitated for a moment, then ordered. You check the profile of everyone who bought Stark stock after my accident and sold it before I came back. Yes, sir. A moment later, a series of names appeared on his computer. Iron Man took a quick look and was instantly attracted by a name. Leon. This guy actually bought so much. Let's check his information. There are many people who meet the requirements. When he got into trouble, many people were pessimistic about Stark Group and its stock price plummeted. However, Stark Group has been prosperous for so many years, and there will always be many loyal shareholders. But buying so much at once is not normal. It's not him. Even if it's not him, there should be some connection. After seeing Leon's photos and related introduction, Tony had some guesses in his mind. At this moment, a piece of news suddenly broke out on the TV in the studio. The red carpet at Disney Concert Hall is brightly lit and bustling tonight. Tony Stark is hosting the 3rd annual charity ball for the Fire Family Foundation. It will be held here. The elites of Los Angeles upper-class society gather here, and it's a star-studded gathering. The initiator of this event, Tony Stark, recently caused controversy with his outspoken remarks at a press conference, and he has since disappeared. Some said he had post-concussion symptoms and was bedridden for weeks. Jarvis, don't wait for me. Tony put down the ice pack with a somewhat grim look on his face, then stood up and left the studio. He wanted to show up tonight to prove that he was not bedridden. End of this chapter. Like and subscribe to my channel for more stories like this.